Stand up, New York Giant fans. Maybe it was a couple of days away from the team, Baddog. I got a little more oomph in that stand up. I'm a little bit.
I noticed.
I'm a little bit more excited to talk about the team, having a couple of days off, letting it clear my head a little bit. I do think stepping away for a couple of days, I could take some positives out of the first 2 weeks. Obviously, not where we want to be at 0-2. Obviously, a deflating loss week one. The way that it played out with Brian Daboll, not having a kicker prepared, the defense looking as bad as they did, giving up 250 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
A lot of bad to take out of that game. But I think the offensive line, like you predicted before the year started, has looked better than we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And I think Malik Neighbors has proven to be a legitimate number one wide receiver. So I do think there's some positives. Obviously, you hate that you start 0-2. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see how the team looks week 3. I really am. And we may start 0-3 and we may be in the depressed state again, and we'll see how it plays out. But I'm excited to see how they come out this week. I really am.
We should have won Sunday.
We should have won Sunday.
We should have won Sunday, man. It just sucks because, man, when you're the Giants, like, you got to play just about perfect football, right? We don't have enough talent to overcome mistakes. And the biggest mistake in this game to me, Malik Neighbors' drop was big, but Malik Neighbors had 127 to Daniel Jones, 178 yards. He had 10 receptions. He had a touchdown. I mean, the kid's the only reason we were even in the game. I thought Singletary was great. He had the fumble. Like, you see what I mean? Like, Malik Neighbors is a great game, big drop. Devin Singletary is a great game, big fumble. Like, it's like something just happens to kind of, make them lose. Now, if we had a kicker, the game's probably played totally different. So who knows how it lands? I always say the Malik Neighbors, they would have never happened. They would have went for it on fourth down, but then again, they went for it earlier in the game on fourth down. They scored
in the third quarter. Yeah.
So it's really hard to know how the play calling would have played out had they had, a kicker. Maybe it was better that they didn't for their offensive purpose because they scored 3 touchdowns. And when the hell's the last time we put 3 touchdowns up in a game? I mean, against Eagles, obviously, but you know what I'm saying? It's rare that we do that. But yeah, I feel like the offensive line has played very well. I feel like Singletary could run the ball just fine. He didn't really get a chance in week 1. We were behind right away. 16 for 95 and a touchdown. You take that all day. He had better numbers than Saquon did this week. Okay. He scored a touchdown. Saquon didn't. Saquon had the same amount of carries. He had the same amount of, he had more carries. He had the same amount of yards. I don't know, man. There is some positives to take away from it. It's just difficult because for us, there's really no moral victories. Like, I'm sick of losing.
Yeah, as am I.
The ironic thing, Chris, is if we won, which I still feel we should have, we'd be in first place.
You'd have
totally different, right?
Yeah, because we'd have the division win, so we'd actually have the tiebreaker. So technically speaking, we would be in first place right now.
So if you want to look at it, glass half full, we're only a game out of first.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Obviously, I think at this point, most Giant fans have come to the conclusion, and I hope I'm wrong, that we're probably not going to be even competing to make the playoffs this year.
Probably not.
But I do think there's some silver linings to take out of the first 2 weeks. I think the rookie class thus far looks really good. I think Drew is the best player in the field on defense for the Giants this past week. I think Newman looked good too. Both of those guys are physical. Of course, Malik Neighbors was the star of the show. So I definitely think there's some, and I think John Michael Schmitz looks like he's getting better. Say what you want, but that was say what you want about Washington's defense. Their interior defensive line is actually pretty strong.
It is very good, yes.
And John Michael Schmitz held up really well. So I think there's some things to look at and say, okay, at least these could be building blocks. At least there's some pieces in place where this team can build. We all know, and we talk about it relentlessly every time we do a show because it's inevitable, because it's the most important position. We all know the quarterback has to be addressed at some point, and it's going to be. It's inevitable. I won't kill Jones this past week. I wouldn't, if it was a regular job, I wouldn't give Daniel Jones a Christmas bonus based off of last week. Right. But I'd be like, okay, you get to keep your job. You did your job. You didn't go above and beyond. You did your job. You played well enough. I wouldn't say it was a flawless performance. I wouldn't say it was a great performance. It was a good enough performance. But, we got another 15 games to evaluate him, and we all know if this team wins 5 or 6 games, pretty much regardless of how he plays, they're more than likely going to be moving on from him. So that goes without saying. So I like to look at other things. knowing that we're probably going to address that quarterback sooner than later, and seeing if things are growing. And I think the offensive line is important to see, and we're going to get a better test. Obviously, Cleveland's a very good defense, so we're going to get a really good test this week to see how we measure up. But so far, I think it's fair to say positive reviews thus far with the offensive line. And to me, that's one of the most important things. What I'm upset about, outside of course, the obvious in terms of the run defense, like that was something that we thought for sure was going to improve dramatically with the addition of Bowen. Always had the reputation of being good against the run. It's been dreadful early on. But what I'm even more upset about is Daboll. And it's only 2 weeks, and I'm not calling to fire the guy, but that to me is what I'm.
I mean, you got balloons going by. The other day was fireworks. Now it's balloons. What the hell's going on over there?
I didn't see
Who's having a party without me over there?
But that's what I'm most concerned with. I think through 2 weeks is Daboll, and we'll see how he responds. But not having the kicker prepared, I thought that was bad. The play calling week 1 was really bad. I actually thought the play calling this week was much improved, but I don't love what I've seen from Daboll thus far. So that's kind of what I'm most upset about thus far through the first 2 weeks. Outside of the obvious run defense, that's looked dreadful. But yeah, that's my outlook so far through the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's amazing how Daboll was like everybody's sweetheart 2022, like taking a team that had no business being in the postseason and getting them to the divisional round, and you thought, wow, this guy really we found something. Look at how good these guys play for him. Look at how hard they play for him. He's getting the most out of his talent, which is what any coach can do. Can you imagine when he actually gets talent, what this team could be? And he's regressed. And I don't like the way he is with the media. Like, people like Baddog, he's not as bad as Joe Judge. I'm not saying he's as bad of a coach as Joe Judge. When I talk about approaching Joe Judge territory, I talk about what I mean is when he's asked a question, he'll deflect it. He won't take accountability for it. Like, when Jordan Renan constantly pressed him about, why didn't you have a kicker? You knew he was hurt. Well, Jordan, players get hurt. Yeah, but, and it was his hamstring chasing down a guy. It wasn't his groin. His groin was hurt. And Jordan says, well, if you have an injury somewhere, don't you think it's likely that you could have another? I'm not a doctor. Like this type of shit, like, I don't like that. Yeah. And I understand. See, now, like I said, you're everybody's darling when you're winning games in New York, but they can turn on you like that. And that's what's happening. Now you have a lot to answer for. You're losing. And that was a major question. And Chris, we talked about during the game. They're going to ask him about that. Why didn't you have a kicker ready to go? You knew this all week. This wasn't something that popped up in pregame. Why didn't you have a kicker prepared? And he didn't answer the question. That's what I mean by.
And there was a track record too. It happened last year.
Right.
We saw last year what happened to Gano when he tried to play through an injury. I don't give him a pass on that. I thought that was a really boneheaded decision. And that decision by itself probably cost us the opportunity to be 1-1 right now. So, yeah, I think Brian Daboll deserves to get lit up for that. I think it was horrible not to be better prepared for something like that. So, yeah, was not a fan and have not been a fan thus far through 2 weeks for Brian Daboll.
I'm going to say something Carl Banks mentioned, like on Twitter. He has talks about the defense or how people are shitting all over Shane Bowen and all this stuff. And I just commented, and the way I look at it is this. I like people didn't like the scheme. I don't mind Bowen's scheme at all. I listen, this is what he is. We know this. He's a bend but don't break. He's kicked the field goal, stop and get, don't let him score touchdowns. And that's fine. And I think the players are learning it, and I think they'll get better. But the impact players on this defense need to make impact plays. And we're talking about Kayvon Thibodeau. We're talking about Brian Burns. We're talking about Dexter Lawrence. We're talking about Bobby Okereke. Hello?
I will say, Kayvon, I thought Kayvon actually played relatively well this week. He did get a good amount of pressures, but I agree we need to see more of it.
Got to finish the plays, though. Like we know Kayvon can get close.
Yeah.
Close is not getting there. Brian Burns hasn't really showed out yet. And again, I'm not saying that, this is a terrible, they should have never signed Burns and Bowen. So I'm not saying that because I know it's going to take time for players to get acclimated. I'm not comparing this team to 2007 by any stretch of the imagination because we all know the talent that was on that defense and what it became. However, we know in 2007, their defense gave up 80 points in 2 games and looked completely lost. And it took them a little bit to get used to Spagnuolo. So, again, you got to think, we talk about Daniel Jones going through a bunch of offensive coordinators. A lot of these guys went through 3 defensive coordinators now. So you have to understand they're also every year have a different scheme to learn. So they might get off to a slow start. I'm with you, though. I feel like the run defense has been the biggest letdown because we thought that in the passing game, we have a young secondary. There may be holes, maybe breakdowns in coverage. The tackling's been bad. We know that. I still think the talent of defense is really good. I think they'll get better.
I agree with that.
The Giants have to, Chris, they got to find a way to put everything together and not have these mistakes, not have the penalties on 3rd and long, not give up a 14-yard run on 3rd and 15 where they can go for it. But they have to minimize this stuff. You know what I mean? And if they can build and find a win someplace to give this team some kind of confidence, maybe they can get going. I still think there's a lot more talent on this team this year than there's been in the past. They just got to find a way to win games. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I have an odd feeling that I think we're actually going to be competitive this week. I'm picking the Browns, but I think we're going to be competitive this week. Chris says, I don't think we are set up to win games with the bend but don't break defense. Chris, I think the bend but don't break defense will look a lot better if this pass rush does what we all thought they were going to do before the year started. Now, in fairness to the pass rush, and I'm not trying to make excuses for them, Washington didn't really give the pass rush much of a chance this past week because everything was a quick screen pass. He was getting rid of balls as quickly as he was, and the fact that you couldn't stop the run. They didn't get in positions where they had to throw often. And even when they were in 3rd and 10s and 3rd and 14s and 3rd and 15s, it was screen passes, it was draw plays, it was quarterback runs. So I feel like they didn't have ample opportunity to be able to get pressure with the 4. I know they had 5 sacks, but almost all of that was from guys in the secondary with blitzes because they knew that Jaden Daniels, a rookie quarterback, probably going to be confused with different coverages.
Why did he blitz more?
I actually agree with that. I thought that we said that during the game. We thought that they should have continued to blitz. There was a couple times where they only sent 3 on 3rd and longs, and they made him pay. So
we were getting there with the blitz, Chris. They had no idea what the hell was going on. Jaden Daniels had no idea what was hitting him.
Yeah,
he got away from it, and I was like, "Why? Why would you get away from that? You're killing this guy with this stuff."
Yeah,
and I mentioned he did come back in the game, but I was telling Commanders fans, I wasn't trying to be a smartass. I'm like, Jaden Daniels keeps running the way he does, he is going to go down. He almost did. I mean, Drew Phillips drilled him in the ribs, and he was out for a second, and he obviously got up and went back in and played. But over the course of a long season, man, that's going to take its toll. And he is not a strong guy. I mean, he's tall. I shouldn't say he's not a strong guy. He's not a big guy. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, and he's lanky. He's a big target. He doesn't have a lot of padding there.
Yeah.
These linebackers and these defensive linemen are big, and they're fast. And if they hit you full speed, you're going to feel it.
That's a fact. And Bill, man, always supporting us, man. Thank you so much for being here. Gifted 5 memberships. Love him on Twitter. I see a lot of people, because he had a follow-up comment, he didn't mean it that way. I see a lot of people taking offense in the chat. When you gift a membership, guys, your name turns green. I understand in today's world, everybody, and I get it. Everything's so polarizing. Bill's a good guy. He didn't mean it the way that a lot of people I see in the chat are interpreting. He says too many white names in here, so I had to fix that. He gifted 5 memberships. By doing that, 5 people.
The letters. He meant the letters.
Yeah, 5 people now will have.
Not the people.
Names. So
how would he know? How would you know by a lot of the names? Like I don't know.
Yeah, no, he didn't mean that, guys. He didn't mean that, guys.
Right.
But Giovanni says, please stop with the Daboll slander. Daniel showed lots of improvement against Washington. Go Giants. Love you. I'm not trying to give Daboll slander. Okay. I like Daboll, but I got to be fair. And I think the first 2 weeks, it's fair to be critical of the guy. I don't want to run him out of town. I still think Daboll's going to get the job done. I still like Daboll. I think they're going to get more competitive throughout the course of the year. I think there's still overall more positive with Daboll than bad since he's been here. The team fought for him down the stretch last year when they had every reason to quit. He had a tremendous first season, but I got to be fair. I think he's off to a shaky start. I think he'll right it. I think he will right the ship, though, and this team won't be a complete embarrassment all year. But we'll see. But I got to be fair. Thus far, I've been disappointed with Daboll. But we got 15 more games. It's a long season. We'll see how the team continues to grow and build. As far as Daniel Jones goes, Giovanni, it was definitely an improvement. He couldn't have been much worse than he was week 1. But no, like I said earlier in the stream, I think Daniel Jones, if comparing it to a job, if I was his manager or his supervisor, I would have been like, yeah, he did his job. You're not getting a bonus from me. You're not getting a raise, but you get to work for me for another week or another year or however you want to put it. He did his job. He didn't go above and beyond, but he did his job last week. He played well enough for the team to win. He was not the reason why that team lost that football game. It was the defense, and it was the fact we didn't have a kicker. So yeah, that's my outlook on that.
Yeah, Daboll hasn't been good. I mean, his first year he was great. He pushed all the right buttons. Last 2 years he's regressed. There's no doubt about it. This isn't slander. This is just a fact. I mean, this team last 2 years is now 6-13. I mean, it's not acceptable. We're losing more than 2/3 of our games at this point. Not good. And yeah, Daniel Jones improved against Washington, but I mean, Washington's secondary is pathetic. It's terrible.
Yeah.
He had, and again, I'm not blaming him for losing. Like Chris said, he did his job, but let's not read too much into him throwing for 2 touchdowns against a defense that
I'm not
like Joe Montana.
My opinion of that performance has not changed. I still am anticipating we're going to replace him at year's end at this point, and I still think we need an upgrade at that position. But I'll be fair in my judgment of him in week 2. He was good. He was okay. He wasn't horrible. He was okay.
He played well enough. He played well enough to win.
He played well enough to win. Did he go above and beyond? No, but he had a solid game. I think Malik Neighbors had a lot to do with that. Of course, he had what do you have, like 50 yards after the catch? I mean, the guy he was incredible. But yeah, I'll say he was solid. He played well enough. He didn't turn the ball over. He got the ball in the end zone twice. He orchestrated 3 touchdown drives when they only had 6 or 7 possessions because the defense couldn't get off the field. Now, if you want to be critical, he missed on a number of deep shots, but at least he took them. But he missed badly on 2 or 3 deep throws. I think he had like 4 deep throws, maybe. So he was far from perfect, but he was good enough to get a win last week. He wasn't the reason we lost.
Exactly.
Dr. Garrett says, "Sup, guys? Where's the creativity we saw in 2022?" I actually thought, and I'd have to go back and watch every play, but I remember thinking during that game, I actually liked a lot of the play calling that Brian Daboll drew up. A much bigger improvement over week 1.
Yeah,
I thought he did a really good job with the crossing patterns, getting Neighbors involved. I actually thought the play calling was pretty good this past week. I'm not going to say it was incredible, but I thought it was pretty good. I don't think the offense was the problem this past week. Yeah, that's just my opinion on the matter. So I actually didn't hate the play calling this past week.
I mean, we may see more creativity as the year goes along. I think once Daboll trusts the offensive line more, and they've given him reason to trust it. We're talking about the crossing patterns across the field. Those take a long time to develop. Those drag routes across the field take time to get up and then all the way across. You need time for those plays to develop, and that just speaks to, feel like the offensive line. If I'm taking away anything from these first 2 games, okay, the offensive line is way better.
Yeah.
Is it perfect? No. Is it a finished product? No. But man, night and day.
Yeah.
Right. Malik Neighbors is an absolute stud, and Drew Phillips is a dog. I love him. He's everywhere, man.
I love
those are the 3 real positives I take out of the first 2 weeks, and hopefully we can add some more this week against Cleveland and find a way to win. Because listen, I didn't expect the Giants to be great. I didn't expect the Commanders to be great, but I also thought the Cowboys and Eagles would take a step back towards us. I didn't think the Commanders or Giants would overcome them this year, but I felt like those 2 teams were going to come back to the pack a little bit, and I think their performances last week proved that. And listen, the Eagles had a good opportunity to lose against Green Bay. They could also be 0-2 as well. And their defense is not good. We saw Kirk Cousins go right down the field in a minute, like they were 7-on-7s. I mean, it was, and the Cowboys got demolished. Yeah. So again, I'm not saying either one, the Commanders or the Giants, are going to have to overtake them, but I think within a couple of years, I think you could see a flip-flop. I really do. I think
if we get a quarterback, I agree. I don't think we're that far away from catching those teams if we get a quarterback. I mean, I'm not saying we're there with just a quarterback.
When we get a quarterback.
Yeah, when we get a quarterback. Absolutely. When we get a quarterback. But yeah, the Eagles, to me, what an embarrassing loss that was. I mean, my God, dude. Saquon Barkley drops the ball. Oh my God, what an embarrassing loss that was for them to blow that game against the Falcons.
I was live when that was happening.
Oh, you did.
And I got to tell you, because I do the therapy session after the day after the game. We do either that or a victory stream. It's very rare that we do the victory streams. But I'm watching the game, and I started that stream. I was so down. I were 0-2, lose again. When he dropped that pass, all of a sudden there was like some clouds lifted, and I'm like, I'm like, not only did you drop it, I'm like, you dropped it, that stops the clock, I'll have a chance. When they went down and scored a touchdown, I'm sitting there, Barkley cost them the game, and I loved it so much.
We did, but I couldn't believe how conservative on defense Fangio was on that next drive.
Fangio sucks.
With the new rules, you start at the 30-yard line. He played, dude, he gives him 20 yards. You're already
He gave him 20 or 30 yards on that second pass. I'm like, all right.
They were at the 8-yard line in 28 seconds off of like 3 plays. I'm like, what just happened? Like,
and then Drake London peed all over Slay like he was a urinalment. That was beautiful. And then, of course, Hurts puts the cherry on the sundae by throwing the interception in the game. And, of course, people are like, oh, you're just a hater, bad dog. And I'm like, yeah, yes. Are you new here? Yes, I'm a hater. Hate him.
You should be a hater.
And, of course, I had to – that's one thing I wanted to talk about really quick. I do the video mocking Saquon, of course. I had to. That had to be done. And it had to be done. And Eagle fans, most Eagle fans, 90% of the ones I saw in the comment section, understood it and liked it. I get to hate Bad Dog. Listen, somebody said I get Bad Dog a lot of hell about the Giants. He deserves this one. Let him have this one. He deserves it. You know, I respect the hate. Blah blah blah. Some Giants fans really had a problem with it, which I don't understand. I actually remember somebody saying these so-called Giants fans making fun of Saquon Barkley. Barkley's not a freaking Giant. So what do you mean so-called Giants fans? Of course, our arch rival just lost, and the guy that said, I don't want to be there anymore, I'm going to go over to this team, lost it for them. Who are we rooting for? Are we rooting for I'm rooting for the Giants.
Man, look, I was as big of a Saquon cheerleader as there was. I loved Saquon. I loved everything that Saquon represented as a Giant. He was a model citizen, or whatever phrase you want to use. Like, he was exactly what you wanted in a Giants player. He was hardworking. He said all the classy,
talented.
When a New York Giant signs on with the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't care how much I love them in a New York Giants uniform. I now hate you. Well, you're wearing, not as a person, as a player.
Jersey.
You're wearing that uniform, I hate you. It makes no sense to me. It's actually the complete opposite of what that person said, at least in my eyes. Like, you should not like Saquon Barkley at this point. He's a Philadelphia Eagle. You're a New York Giants fan.
If Devontae Smith left the Eagles and came to the Giants, do you think Eagle fans would be like, oh, come on, Devontae, I hope you kill the Eagles?
Yeah.
And do you think Giants fans would go, I don't want that guy, he's an Eagle? Of course you wouldn't. You'd root your ass off for him because he's wearing our jersey.
Of course.
That's all it's about. And somebody else actually said, oh, did you say this type of stuff about Carl Banks when he went to the Redskins, or Felipe Sparks when he went to the Cowboys? I'm like, number one, why even Felipe Sparks? He's not an all-time Giant. He was a good, decent cornerback. Give me a freaking break. And Carl Banks is different. Carl Banks didn't go, I want to be a Giant, I want to be a Giant, I want to be a Giant, I want to be in the Ring of Honor, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then go in there and they offer him a big contract. He goes, I don't want it 3 times. I don't want it. And then goes to Washington. That's not what happened. This is a totally different situation.
Yeah.
And I don't fault Barkley for wanting money at all. But come on, man. He's an Eagle. If this guy goes to the Texans, if he goes to the Cardinals, if he goes to the Seahawks, I root for him at that point.
Yeah. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm with you on that. He's an Eagle. Danny says, what's up, YouTube? Thank you for being there, Danny. Says, I saw you on PTA Sport. Yeah, Rob was asking me for a few weeks to come on there. Obviously, rest in peace to past horrible. About a year ago, he passed away from cancer. Always liked him. Got to meet him at 2 different Giant games. So it was cool to go on there and reminisce a little bit about Pest. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that he's still doing the show. But, yeah, I appreciate you for tuning in yesterday, Danny. Let's see. Neil says, build Brasillo a statue outside of MetLife. See, and Bad Dog, I'm encouraged like you are with the offensive line for the New York Giants. There's no doubt about it. But before I'm building him a statue, before I'm completely hook, line, and sinker that this offensive line has turned the corner, like really turned the corner, I got to see him do it against the Cowboys. I got to see him do it against this pass rush this week with Myles Garrett. Like, I'm very encouraged. It's definitely a vast improvement over our previous offensive line coach. Brasillo has a track record of turning around mediocre offensive lines. We've talked about it extensively with the Raiders. I think they were ranked 30th or 31st the year before he got there. They were top 12 both years he was there as the offensive line coach. And he had a lot of flipping in and out with a lot of injuries on that offensive line. I think he's going to do a good job here. But I'm not building him a statue yet. I got to see a bit more before I build him a statue.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's been good, though, man.
I'm encouraged.
It was a great hire. And listen, that was my hot take. I said this offensive line was going to be at least in the middle of a pack. That was my hot take, because this team it's been one of the worst offensive lines. I said I feel like they can be average, and that so far they've been about average. This is pretty good.
I think they've been, at least based off pass blocking, I saw they've been above average. So
there you go.
They're off to a good start. Gerson
blocked well too last week, because, like I said, Singletary at 60. I mean, Singletary averaged 6 yards a carry.
He put and he earned those yards. A lot of those were yards after contact yards.
But you also saw how good the holes were for him to run through too.
For sure.
It was good. That's encouraging to me. Maybe not for this year, but in the long term.
Of course.
That's encouraging.
Yeah, of course, man. Gerson says, how much hope do you guys have we're not going? I don't think we'll start at 1-8. I mean, I'll never say never with this team. They always seem to disappoint us in recent years. But I think I don't know. I just think we're going to find a way to win a game or two over this 6-game stretch. I really do. I think we're going to find a way to win a few games. That's still not great. I'm saying we're going to be starting 2-6 maybe. That's still not great.
Right.
I think we'll find a way to win a couple of games in these next 6.
That's the whole thing. You usually find a couple somewhere.
Yeah. Like last year, we would have said the same thing, and they found a couple. So I think they'll find a couple.
Especially when DeVito was starting, you figured they were winning again, and they did.
Yeah. And Giovanni says, I'm getting married next week. This is obviously a better question for Baddog. I'm getting married next week. Any advice?
Yeah, I have some advice. Change your name and leave the country. No, I'm just kidding.
Get a good lawyer. Get a good lawyer.
I say this, Danny, you don't even need to be married. If you're in a relationship, I'm going to give you the 4 greatest words in the history of man. If you can master these 4 words, I promise you will have a successful relationship. Even if it's not true. Ready? You're right. I'm sorry. You master that. Everything else is cream cheese, man. I'm telling you. That's it. Because she's going to let you know she's right. Even when she ain't right, she's going to tell you she's right. So just, you're right. You learn that, you're good. You're good.
Happy wife, happy life, right? That's
right. That's why when people around here saying, "Oh, Baddog, that's a bad take. Oh, Baddog, that was wrong." I'm like, I'm married, man. I'm wrong every day of my life. Ask my wife. Just don't bother me, man.
Yeah. Let's say happy wife is a happy life. That's
happy wife, happy life. That's right.
And Louis says, Chris Baddog, Monday was great. Not only watching the Eagles lose, not only watching Saquon botch the pass, but I have cousins in London on my fantasy team, and they carried me to victory this week again. That's awesome, Lou, man. Congratulations on that.
Love it.
That's a bonus. Obviously, they get the game-winning drive against the team you hate after Saquon Barkley. You were in heaven, Lou. Like, I thought I was in heaven, even more so for you. My fantasy team's actually off to a good start. So I got Godwin. He's been killing it the first 2 weeks. I think he's got over like 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Got him in like the 12th round of I got him late in my draft. So I'm in first place right now. I'm in a roto league, so it's not head-to-head, but I'm in first place.
I'm not in a roto league, but we did win this week.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams, who was on our team when we won the championship a couple of years ago, had a big game. Joe Mixon got just enough points before he got hurt. Thank God. But my sleeper before the year started, carried us to victory. Sam Darnold.
And you didn't want to start him.
I didn't want to start him. I was thinking about Brissett because it was San Fran, and we ended up starting him, and it was the correct move. Pat Mahomes, least amount of yards I think he's ever thrown for in a game. And, of course, we have him. That happens to us all the time. I'm like, the guys that we have the worst years of their career, but I'm like, we won with him having the worst game of his career. You know he ain't going to have 151 yards and interception every week.
Kelsey did nothing. I have Kelsey in my league. He had 5 yards. He did nothing.
Yeah. Well, Kelsey's busy being Mr. Swift.
It's a tough job. It's a tough job.
You know, he's got no balls now, so it's all good. She carries around in her purse. It's good for him.
Joseph, thank you very much for the $2 donation. I appreciate it, man. And Ryan says, hi, bro. Will you be shocked if the Giants lose? Of course not. I'm picking. I mean, I do think it's going to be close. I think the Giants are 6.5-point dogs. I would take the Giants with the points. I think the Browns are going to win, but I actually think the Giants are going to keep this close.
I'd rather take the under.
I think the under is probably a better bet.
The under is probably like 42, probably what it was last week, right?
I would think it might even be lower than that. I didn't see what that was.
Let's take a look.
All right, let me guess.
I'm gonna say 41.5.
I'm gonna say 40 even.
Wow, 38.5.
Yeah, I'm not.
That is low.
Yeah, the Browns' offense is not good.
I know, but that is a low. Wow.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. The Browns' offense is not good.
I mean, then again, the Giants and Commanders only scored 39, and both of them moved the ball the whole day.
Yeah.
So
they got some weapons, though. Like, I'm not going to completely sleep on them. They got some weapons over there. Obviously, Amari Cooper. They got Judy. They got Elijah Moore. Obviously, David Njoku. So they got some weapons.
Yeah, I don't think Njoku's playing. Yeah, I think he's out.
And I think Chubb's out, too, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how we stack up against them. But they got a good offensive line, too, the Browns. So
I was just thinking of taking the under, but I don't know.
I think I would still take the under at that point.
I was gonna say when you bet the Giants, just bet the under. You got a better chance of winning for anything else.
Gershon says, "How much confidence is there starting DeVito instead of Jones? In my eyes, there isn't much difference between them. So not off last week, man. I think there will come a point, more than likely, where they will make that move. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think Jones had a bench-worthy performance last week. I think he played solid. You're not going to bench him off of last week's performance. If he bombs for a couple of weeks in a row, yeah, they may make that move, but it's not coming yet, man.
Yeah. I love Tommy DeVito, but I don't think he's a starter in the NFL. I just don't. People can say, well, neither is Daniel Jones, but why would you skip over Drew Lock? I mean, you brought him in to be the backup. I think he'd get the first crack at it.
I don't think Drew Lock's better than Daniel Jones either. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that want to just see a quarterback change no matter what.
Yep.
I honestly think Daniel Jones right now, I'm not saying I want it to be long-term, but right now I think he's the best quarterback on this team.
By the way, not to change the subject, but I see your Mets have a couple game lead on the Braves.
You're damn right they do. And
the Braves have been getting their ass kicked, and I just wondered.
And they were winning the Mets, at least before we went live.
They're up 10-0.
Now it's 10-0. So yeah, so the Mets, they scored 10 runs now the Braves won tonight. So that the same, and Arizona won, so they didn't gain any ground in Arizona. So they're still going to be tied with Arizona for the second wild, 2 games up on the Braves. And we'll see how. I think last I checked, Houston was beating the Padres, who right now have the first wild card. So if that holds, the Mets would actually only be a game and a half out of the first wild card. But then you got some challenging games coming up. Mets got 10 games left now. 4 against the Phillies, 3 against the Braves, 3 against the Brewers, 3 playoff teams. So
yep,
they got the work cut out for them. But to have that 2-game cushion is big going into those last 10 games.
I can tell you this: the Orioles lost again. The Yankees could go up by 5 games in this division. The Orioles have fell off a cliff. The Yankees have got a little.
I saw that. You got like a 3-game lead on them or something like that, right?
No, it'll be 5 if the Yankees win tonight.
Okay. Yeah,
the Yankees got to win right now. If they lose, they're 4 up, but there's only 12 to play. So 11 to play after tonight. So I'm sorry.
You guys are going to coast to the division.
10 to play after tonight. If they have a 5-game lead with 10 to play, yeah, that's pretty good. The magic number is 5. That's pretty good. I think the Yankees are already in the. I think they've already clinched a wild card, so they've already done that.
Yeah, Yankees are going to get the 1 seed probably in the AL. Probably.
Yeah, Cleveland's got 2 more losses than they do, but they got the same amount of wins. So
yeah. King Josh says, if all the Feagles talk, how freaking cool is it that my boy Mother effing Easy MNF E is going to the MNF Hall of Fame? Okay, so King, he's going to, but I saw a lot of people reacting to that today, and I don't know if that's how you took it, King. Maybe you're just like, he's going to get in. A lot of people responded to this as if he already got in. He got nominated to be a person that can get in. There's 167 nominees, so that was a given that he was going to be nominated. He has not been put into the Hall of Fame. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Eli Manning gets in first ballot.
He'll be a finalist.
Yeah, he'll definitely be a finalist. Question is, does he get in? And normally I would tell you, Bad Dog, even though I think we both agree he should be a first ballot, all you got to do is just look at his accomplishments. We've said it a million times. We don't need to say it again. You look around the league, half the teams in the league, he would be their greatest quarterback in franchise history. He's a Hall of Famer. But I was always of the mindset he's not going to get in first ballot, because you look at the history of the league, the history of the quarterback position, it is really difficult to get in first ballot at that position. I don't have the list in front of me, but there's a lot of quarterbacks who did not get in the first crack or even the second crack that you would say, wow, I'm surprised. So I always thought it would take him a few years. But when you look at this class, I actually think Eli stands a pretty good chance to get in first ballot.
Is Coughlin nominated?
Well, I know, if I'm not mistaken, the rule, I only knew of this rule because he didn't get in like 2 years ago. You're only allowed to put in one coach every year, I think. So I would imagine he's nominated. I don't know if he'll get it. I hope that would be incredible if they both.
That would be great. They can both go in at the same time.
That would be incredible.
And I still think Tom Brady should do Eli Manning's induction speech.
Both of them, Coughlin and Tom Brady, both of them.
Yeah.
And Joe, man, thank you very much, man. What's up, man? He says, my guys, 70-year-old Giants fan, don't forget they wanted to can Parcells after going 3-12 in 1983, then went 9-7, 10-6, 14-2 in 86 and won the Super Bowl. And Sims had a lot of injuries like Jones. Hey, Joe, man, listen, I hope you're right. I have still not completely written the possibility off that Daniel Jones could be back next year. But, I mean, in my opinion, Joe, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you disagree with me, I think they have to make the playoffs, man. I think they have to make the playoffs for that to become a possibility, because if you're the Giants, it's not like it was back then. There's a salary cap. You could save $20 million on your salary cap next year if you move off of them. So I feel like you have to be put in a situation where the alternative of saving $20 million and replacing him with a journeyman or potentially somebody in the draft doesn't outweigh it. So that means he has to play relatively well. And if he plays relatively well, this team's at least going to be competing to make the playoffs. So that's just my outlook on it, Joe. And we'll see at the end of the year how it plays out. But I get what you're saying, and I'm certainly not giving up on Daboll. But with Jones, I mean, it's year 6. It's year 6. And like I said, it's a different game now with the salary cap. So it's really hard for me to foresee a scenario where Jones is the starting quarterback next year unless this team does something similar to what they did in 2022.
Joe, I can speak to this very well because that was exactly the year I started watching the Giants. It was after the 83 debacle when Parcells sat a healthy Phil Simms, him place of Scott Bruno. They went 3-12-1, and there was talk about Parcells being fired. And then he started Simms in 1984. He turned over half the roster. Simms threw for 4,000 yards. And then obviously he got better and better. But there's the two things about those teams, in my opinion. And again, I was young, but I'm old enough to remember those great 80s teams and this one. There's two differences. The first difference is this. That defense was insane. You had 3 Hall of Famers as linebackers, right? I mean, Banks is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He's nominated again. I think Leonard Marshall's nominated. So these guys are borderline Hall of Famers at the very least, because I think Leonard Marshall is one of the most underrated Giants ever. I've said he is the most underrated Giant ever. I mean, Lawrence Taylor is the greatest defensive player ever. And Harry Carson was a Hall of Fame linebacker. You also had guys like Pepper Johnson and Gary Reasons. The defense was insane.
One of the greatest defenses of all time.
The other thing is, the passing game wasn't nearly as prevalent in 1986, in the middle 80s as it is now. Every quarterback is throwing the ball a ton. The passing game has become extremely important. That's why running backs don't get the money that they used to get. Running back was a very integral part of most offenses in the 80s. It was really, that's the way we won football games, running a defense. Nowadays, it's quarterbacks running out of the pocket. They're mobile, they're accurate. There's RPOs. These receivers are insane. The passing game is just so much different today, and it's relied upon a lot more than it was in the 80s. I would love to see the Giants turn around. I've said everything is cyclical, man. I said the Giants were, in the postseason when I was young. They were really bad when I was born for years. They got in the postseason that 1 year. Then 5 years later, they won a Super Bowl. I said, my kid was born. They had the worst year ever in 2017. The only time they lost 13 games at that point. They're really bad for years. Hit the playoffs in a couple of years when he was 5. And I'm just like, 5 more years, when he's 10 or 11, they should win a Super Bowl. So it's cyclical, right? We go 1986, 90, and then we wait 17 years and win a 4. 2028.
I hope you're right, Baddog. I've been convincing myself with numbers my whole life with the Mets, and the numbers have never worked out. When, when I
But
was
these are
younger,
the Giants. These aren't the Mets. These are the Giants.
when I was
These are the
younger as a
Giants.
kid, I said 69, 86, 17 years, 2003 is going to be the year. 2003 came, 2003 went. We're at 2024 now. But you're right. It is the Giants. It's not the Mets.
Right.
And Durant says, what are your metrics for determining a Hall of Famer? Eli Manning is Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. I don't have a specific metric. What I can tell you this, Durant, is a lot of people have used the phrase pertaining to Eli Manning. They say you can't tell the story of the NFL without Eli Manning. The bottom line is when it comes to Eli, because I assume that's why you're asking the question, because that's what spawned the Hall of Fame talk. It's not like baseball. Like baseball is pretty cut and dry. It's such a statistically driven sport.
Right. It's one-on-one pretty much, right?
If you have 3,000 hits, you're a Hall of Famer. If you have an over 300 career average, you're probably have a good chance to make the Hall of Fame.
500 homers.
500 home runs. Like there's magic numbers in baseball.
300. You'll never see 300 wins again, but that was
250 wins in today's game. You're probably a Hall of Famer. But it's so statistically driven. Football is not that way. It's just not. There's so many different variables when it comes to football where stats could be misleading, whether it be where you play, the surrounding team you have around you. In baseball, if you could hit, you could hit. It doesn't matter. If Derek Jeter could have played for the Mets, he still would have had a career average of over 300. Not that way in football. If you get put in a horrible situation, the elements play a factor when it comes to statistics in football, where you play. So it's not as cut and dry for me, at least, in terms of Hall of Fame credentials. If you're just looking at statistics, Eli Manning.
The other thing is, in football, you rely on other people around you. In baseball, you don't rely on anybody. You're the only guy in that batter's box. Nobody can help you. That's why made the difference.
Eli Manning, bottom line is this, Baddog, 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. He's one of only, I think it's 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks in the history of football. It might be 4, maybe it's 5.
I know it's I think it's 4 other ones. Brady's done it.
Oh yeah, I was going to talk
about Mahomes has done it now too. So Mahomes has done it. They will be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But before him, Starr, Bradshaw, Montana.
Yeah.
They're all in the Hall of Fame.
And one of my favorite stats, and I think it may have changed over the last couple of years, but up until like 3 or 4 years ago, at the time, only 3 quarterbacks had ever, and I think since then, Stafford has now done it, and maybe Mahomes did it with one of these last 2 Super Bowls. But before the last few years, only 3 quarterbacks in the history of football had won a Super Bowl where they took up more than 10% of the cap. Eli Manning did it twice. Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, and Tom Brady. That was it. So he proved when he got paid and he took up a large portion of the cap, he was still able to carry the football team. He was incredible in 2011. So many incredible moments. He has arguably the greatest throw in the history of football when he hit Mario Manningham. Arguably the most memorable play in the history of football with the Tyree catch. 2 game-winning drives one of which was against the greatest regular season team in the history of football. He had the most road playoff wins at one point. I think Joe Flacco broke that for a quarterback in the history of the NFL. I mean, dude, when the chips were on the table, when the chips were on the line, there wasn't many quarterbacks that played in the NFL that you wanted more than Eli Manning. That's just the truth of the matter. Did he do boneheaded things? Absolutely. Did his career taper out over the second half? Absolutely. When they gave him a crappy offensive line and the team went to hell and Tom Coughlin left, we all know the story. Mm-hmm. But Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer. Through the first half of Eli Manning's career, most people would have told you he was the best quarterback in that class. At that point, he had 2 Super Bowls. Obviously, Ben had a much better second half to his career because of stability, had a great surrounding cast, Antonio Brown, great offensive line, yada, yada, yada. But Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt in my mind. When he retired, he was top 10 in passing yards, top 10 in touchdowns, second in terms of the Iron Man streak. He's a Hall of Famer. If Eli Manning doesn't make the Hall of Fame, Baddog, that would mean that there was only one Hall of Famer, and he only played for one of those Super Bowl teams that played for those Super Bowl teams, and that's Michael Strahan. Eli Manning's going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, without question. There's no doubt. I mean, he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, compare him to his peers back then. He was easily in the top 10 quarterbacks in the league back then, without question. And again, you can look at his numbers at the beginning of his career. Yeah, they were off, but again, rules were different. You could smash the shit out of the quarterback. You could bump at the line of scrimmage. Eli Manning was taking 7-step drops and throwing low percentage passes. That was part of the scheme he was in. Turned the ball over a lot in his career, but he didn't turn it over as much as Brett Favre. I don't even think he threw as many interceptions as his brother did. Okay. Eli Manning threw over 360 touchdown passes. He has the record for all-time passing yardage in a single season when you account for the regular season and the postseason. Like Chris said, he's got 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Only a handful of quarterbacks have done that. It's not, there's a lot of quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame that didn't do it. Why is Troy Aikman in the Hall of Fame? Somebody tell me why he's in the Hall of Fame. That guy's stats sucked. He never had a year where he only had 1 year in his career where he threw for more than 20 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay. He was carried. But he's in the Hall of Fame. Bob Greasy's in the Hall of Fame. Don't have great numbers. Of course, that was back in the 70s. But people, and then people are always like, oh, Eli's overrated. I never understood the Eli's overrated. All everybody does is say how bad Eli was. How could you be overrated? If everybody's telling you you're terrible, how are you overrated? Outside of Giants fans, and a lot of Giants fans even say, oh, he sucked because they didn't see him when he was really good. But outside of Giants fans, who's saying, how many Eagle fans are like, yeah, Eli was great? There's a few that say, I love Eli. There's a few, there's football fans that give him his respect, but most casual fans aren't going to be like, yeah, that guy, he sucks, your Eli face, and all this other crap. I take Eli's face any day on this freaking team. He was the face of this team for many years, 15 years on this team. And like I said, 2 Super Bowl wins. He was in the playoffs a number of times. Obviously, at the end of his career, he had Eric Flowers protecting his blind side. I mean, how good are you going to do when that's there? They let Odell Beckham walk. It was just.
And the other thing, and we've talked about this before. The other thing I'll say about Eli Manning, look how much worse and how much better receivers got or tight ends got when they came to the Giants and when they left the Giants. Every player that left the Giants after they played with Eli Manning got worse. Now, a lot of that was due to injuries. I'm not going to deny that. Hakeem Nicks got hurt. Victor Cruz got hurt. Steve Smith got hurt. But Kevin Boss, you didn't even know who he was when he went to the Raiders. And guys that Mario Manningham fell off a cliff when he left the New York Giants. So I look at it like that too. I think he improved players. And I think that shows you that he was, I'm not going to necessarily say an elite quarterback throughout the course of his career, although he was certainly elite in the big spot, and he was certainly elite in 2011. He was definitely a guy that made players better around him. There's no doubt about it. And there's not a ton of quarterbacks that do that. Eli Manning's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah,
without question.
Dr. Garrett says, oh, he's getting a statue, guys. I still have nightmares of Billy Price and Will Hernandez running into each other, falling down in the clown. Yeah, that was bad. That was the year where we were scrambling for offensive linemen before the year started because Dave Gettleman realized he screwed up. Billy Price, what a disaster he was. Oh, my God.
How many disasters have we had in that line?
Yeah.
A lot.
And Dominic says, was at the last game. Gillen was kicking fine at the half. Wish we kicked at least the extra points. Think we beat the Browns this week. Appreciate you guys. Thank you very much, Dominic. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was part of Daboll's thinking. Like, I'm trying to be as fair as I could be, even though I still think it was a mistake. But maybe that was part of Daboll's thinking is last year, Gillen actually was pretty good, if I remember. He made a couple of extra points when he was thrown in, and I think he made a pretty long field goal, too. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. But regardless, I get where you're coming from. I don't think it would have mattered in the end, but I think we still would have lost because he probably would have missed at least one of those 2 extra points. And I don't think they would have had enough confidence for him to attempt that field goal at the end of the game because where were we on the field at that point? It was probably at least a 40-yarder.
It was. So I think because he missed that extra point so badly.
And it was bad. It
wasn't close.
Yeah.
Daboll's like, I can't do this.
Yeah, he yanked it. But yeah, I mean, at that point, I don't blame Daboll for that. I blame Daboll for not being more prepared to have a replacement kicker for the game, knowing that Gano was on the injury report. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, he had his opinion. I think, like you were kind of alluding to, I think his answer when it came to it was a different injury than he had during the week. I think that's a bullshit answer because
I do too.
You can't convince me that it's at least a possibility that because he had an injury to a different part of his leg, it may have contributed to the other part of it.
Exactly. If you have an injury and you're favoring one part of your body, you're probably going to hurt another part of your body because that's not the way you normally move around.
Yeah. So
it is what it is.
And Ian says, I watched Bad Dog's vid on Bryce Young. Interested? I did not, so I'll get Bad Dog's thoughts on that. Interested in your thoughts, Chris, though I have a bad taste already from the Burns trade. He's inaccurate, though.
So, yeah, I hear these Bryce Young rumors, and I tweeted something out. Would you Giants fans, would you take this guy? Yes, or pretty much just yes or no. Would you take him for a 3rd-round pick or later? and it was pretty mixed. So, but it got a lot of comments, like a lot of interaction. I was like, let me do a video on it and just give my thoughts. So the way I look at it with Bryce Young is this: they've already benched him, which is insane to me. You literally gave up so much draft capital, and you let him play for a year on a horrendous team, and you benched him the second game of the year. You didn't even give him a chance.
That organization's a mess.
It's a disaster. The way I look at it is this: if the Giants, do we say they got a 4th round supplemental pick for Barkley?
For McKinney. Yeah.
For McKinney, I'm sorry. If you could give up that pick and maybe a 7th rounder and get Bryce Young here, the way I look at it is this: if we suck, Daniel Jones is going anywhere next year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's probably going. They're not going to trade for him today. So you're probably going to see a couple more weeks at 0-4. You're probably like, this year's over. Bryce Young is in his 2nd year. You would have him for another 3 years under contract.
Two with the option for 3. But yeah.
Right. But I'm saying you could have him for 3 years. 3 more years. You bring him in, you see if Daboll can do anything. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Daniel Jones is who Daniel Jones was when Daboll got here. He has bad instincts. You can teach skill. You can teach mechanics. You can coach that up. You can't coach up instinct. I don't get to watch Bryce Young a lot at Carolina. But there's a reason that he won the Heisman. There's a reason that he went number 1 overall.
Yeah.
He's 22 years old. He ain't going to cost you a lot of money. If he sucks, well, Locke's going next year anyways. You're on a 1-year deal. You're getting rid of Jones. You draft your quarterback. Yeah. Bryce Young's your backup. It's a piece of cake. If Bryce Young comes here and all of a sudden he's great and he really shows improvement,
I don't think he will be. I don't think he will be great. But I'm not faulting your logic so far. Go ahead.
You have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Because backup quarterbacks make a lot of money. What the hell is Tyrod Taylor getting? So it's not like Bryce Young's money is going to kill you if he's your backup at $8 million a year, whatever he gets. So you're going to lose 2 quarterbacks anyway. If Bryce Young proves that he can play at this level and you find something and you make him better and you think, hey, we can compete with this guy, you ride him and he has a rookie contract. If he stinks, like I said, you get your quarterback in this draft, or as a lot of Giants fans dream of, hey, he's your stopgap next year, and then you go and get Arch Manning in 2026. I don't think that would happen, but you never know. But that was my thinking behind it. If the price is right, I would have no problem. Now you have to cut somebody. You can't carry 4 quarterbacks. I don't know if it'd be a Lock or DeVito. One of them's obviously gone. Yeah. Jones will go to the bench, and Jones is going to move on next year. It's probably what's going to happen anyway. But by the time the trade, deadline rolls around, we're either going to be competitive or we're not.
You could also do it in the offseason. It doesn't necessarily have to happen in season this year.
True.
But
what I'm saying, Chris, is if you did it in the offseason, you really
would be able to evaluate him before the draft.
Yeah. So I figure if you get him in week 5, you have 12 more weeks to evaluate him. Mm-hmm. And you already know at this point, Jones is probably gone. You're probably you're going to scout all the quarterbacks anyway. But hey, like I said, if this kid all of a sudden you think you got something there, and you could say, well, let's go get Travis Hunter. Let's get a corner, or let's get a lineman. We don't need to address the quarterback in this class because we think Bryce Young could be our guy. I just don't think there's a lot to lose there. It's not like they're giving up a 2nd rounder or a 1st rounder. Well,
here's what I'll say. If Brian Daboll believes in him, I would make the trade, of course. Like if Brian Daboll feels like he can make Bryce Young a really good quarterback, of course you make the trade. So it would come down to that, and I don't think the Giants would even entertain making a trade for him if Brian Daboll didn't feel that way.
Agreed.
The thing is, we talk about a 4th round pick, 5th round pick, and that's probably where I'd be like, okay, that's fine. Like I wouldn't want to give up a 2nd. I don't think I'd want to give up.
No, definitely not.
I just feel, and Carolina may do it because there's just an embarrassing organization.
They really are. There's one team worse than us. It's them.
I just feel Carolina wouldn't do it for that price. Like it would be such an embarrassment.
But why are they benching him then, Chris? Like I don't get it. We're not going anywhere anyway, right?
Yeah, I guess. I just feel like it would be such an embarrassment to trade a guy that was the 1st overall pick,
and you traded
a year and a half ago that you traded up for, and you gave so much draft capital up to get. I don't even want to entertain the thought because I can't see Carolina doing that.
Well, remember this,
maybe in a year or two, maybe. But right now, I just think they wouldn't do that.
Remember this, though. I know he wasn't the 1st overall pick in the draft. Josh Rosen. The Cardinals traded up to get Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
And next year, they dumped him. They
they
didn't give up as much, but they moved up
They also had the insurance of knowing they had the number 1 pick and knowing they had a quarterback that they liked.
Right, but Carolina's not going anywhere.
They're probably going to have
I think they know this. Well, you're not starting Andy Dalton because you're like, oh, let's see if we can make a run the playoffs with Andy Dalton.
No, of course not. Of course not.
So that's why I don't understand what they're doing. Like, why would you let him develop? Why wouldn't you play him just to see? If you suck and you want another quarterback, fine, but give him a chance. He said he's in his second year. He hasn't even played. He's played 2 games in his second year. How do you give up on him already?
Yeah.
He wasn't my favorite quarterback in that draft.
I was never the one thing that stood out to me when I watched Bryce Young while he was at college that I will say I liked. Very intelligent quarterback. Mm-hmm. Like he would do things. Very small. He would do things that I'd be like, wow, that's something that Pat Mahomes would do. Like how he was able to think on the fly and have a quick flip, and he was able to improvise. That was one thing that impressed me when I watched Bryce Young when he played at Alabama. But I was much higher on C.J. Stroud than him coming out of college. Not that I thought C.J. Stroud was going to be this good, but right. I was much higher as a prospect on C.J. I was never nearly as big of a fan as Bryce Young. And his size, I mean, the guy might be 150 pounds. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. He doesn't
He's only like 5'10". He's not a tall guy either. So
he doesn't have the athletic ability of a guy like a Kyler Murray. He's not that equipped with the
not many have that.
Yeah, of course. I think Kyler could kind of get away with his size a little bit because of that. Yeah. I've never.
Kyler also has a way stronger arm.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I don't think Bryce Young is going to come here and be this great quarterback. And I understand the logic. Well, take a shot. You got nothing to lose. Quarterback's the most important position. If you can get him for a fourth or fifth round pick, throw a dart at the board. I'm with that. I think that's sound logic, but I just can't force, at least right now. Maybe next year, if things continue to spiral out of control, they'd be more open to trading him for a fourth or fifth round pick. I don't think they would trade him for that low of a price at this point. But hey, maybe I'd be wrong. I mean, the Bears traded Justin Fields for like a 6th round pick. Now, to be fair, they knew that they were going to get Caleb Williams. They had the first pick. It was, he was one of the most talked about quarterback prospects in years. Justin Fields was coming up on the end of his contract. Yeah. So a different situation. But if they were willing to trade him for a 4th or 5th round pick and Brian Daboll said, I think I could turn him into something. Yeah, if you're Shane, you do it. You take a shot at that point. Like you said, even though he does make a lot of money, just as a football player on a rookie deal because he was the first overall pick, the market for the backup quarterback is almost going to be what he's making if you have a good backup. So, I wouldn't let the salary scare me away. And if you get him for next to nothing and Daboll believes in the guy, I would take that swing. I just don't think Carolina would do it. Yeah,
again, the rumors are out there, and it's interesting because Bryce Young was not happy about being benched, and I don't blame him. I can't wrap my head around the fact that Carolina would do that to him.
I don't think they would do
it early in his career. Like I said, it's not like they were, they lost in New Orleans like 47-10. That wasn't Bryce Young. Bryce Young hasn't been good, but it's not Bryce Young's fault. The defense gave up 47 points. Yeah. That compensatory pick, which is like whatever it is, the 130th pick. It's like going into the 5th round. If that's all you had to give up, why not take a shot at a 22-year-old former Heisman winner just for the rest of the year? Just see what you got. And like I said, if he stinks, you're moving on from Locke and Jones anyway. You draft your Cameron Ward and you go with Bryce Young as your backup. Man,
it would have to be a very low offer though.
Like, yeah. I'm not giving up a lot for him. No, absolutely not. But the ironic thing is, so many people are like, "Oh, we can't afford to give up picks." And these same people are the ones that are saying, "Joe Shane sucks at drafting." What's the difference? What's the difference at that point? Yeah. But it's always interesting. We've heard the Zach Wilson rumors. There was rumors about Dak Prescott coming here. Not great. Right. So
I think a lot of Giants fans look at that too, that are open to this possibility. And even though I think it's a pipe dream, and I'm not like dying for this, but I think I did see like talk about it on Twitter. I think they look at Baker Mayfield. They say, well, look what happened to him when he got put in a better environment. Look what happened to Sam Darnold. Look how he looks 2 weeks in when he got put in a better environment. And I think that's fair. I don't know how good the Giants environment is, and I'm not super sold on
better than Carolina's.
Yeah, but hey, if it's for nothing, low risk, high reward, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Rarely says you guys should start wearing Plaxico Burris jerseys because the Giants make you want to discharge a weapon on here. I actually have. I think I donated to charity. I did have a Plaxico Burris jersey when I was younger, but I don't have one anymore.
I never had a Plaxico Burress jersey.
Never had a Plax jersey?
Never had a
No?
Plaxico jersey. No.
I did, but I think I donated it. Gavin says Lane Kiffin's on the New York Giants. Motor now Joseph. We got it. Yeah, we got a new kicker. How about Motor saluting Alfred Morris in Washington when he scored a touchdown? FAU just in F the Browns. Go Big Blue.
Yes, please.
Got to find a way to get this win this week, man.
This defense can get to Deshaun Watson. They got a chance. I mean, but we're not getting there. And Watson's another guy that can run the football. So
I don't think Watson's very good anymore.
I don't either, man. He fell off a cliff.
I don't think
that whole legal thing and his injuries. Just he's done. He's done.
Yeah.
Sucks. I loved Deshaun Watson. Man, I wanted the Giants to draft Deshaun Watson so bad that year.
I mean, he was great for about 3 years or so, 4 years. He was great.
Great until all the stuff off the field happened to him.
Yeah. And Joseph, man, thank you again, man. He says, hey, again, if Bryce Young was 6'1" or taller, I would make an offer to Carolina straight up for Neal. I would trade Neal right now for him. I'm completely done with Neal. Well, I shouldn't say that. I would at least want to see if he could be a guard. I would want to see if he could play the guard. I'm done with him in terms of being a tackle. I don't know, man. I just think Carolina has their head up their ass. So I guess maybe they would do something as unorthodox as trading the guy that was the first overall pick that you gave up so much for just a year ago. Maybe they would. I'm leaning they would not yet. But it is weird that they would bench him this early in the season. Very weird.
I just brought this article up, and it literally just came out when we started this. They must have heard us talking about it. It says Canales must be the guy. The Panthers head coach, but it says he added Young gets to be a franchise quarterback. Time reporters absolutely on Wednesday. This is developmental minded programs. Development didn't stop. Every rep he's out there, we're evaluating the whole thing, having conversations, and continuing to push all of our guys. It says Young wasn't happy, blah, blah, blah. Where's the thing I said? He said he wasn't. Oh, there it is. The Panthers are shooting down any suggestions that they're going to trade Bryce Young. That's not really something we're considering, he said. We have a great situation with the quarterbacks right now, with guys that have experience. We love where we are, and we love where we're at, and it's all hands on deck. Okay,
that's nonsense to me. It feels like what the Jets did last year with Zach Wilson. Like they got to a point where they were like, we got to say the right thing, but we're going to put him on the bench.
That's what I got.
Yeah, like Aaron Rodgers, of course, you had the built-in excuse. Okay, we could sit him we got an opportunity to get one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. We could sit Zach Wilson for a year or two and let him develop. So you could kind of hide your lack of confidence in Zach Wilson behind the shield of Aaron Rodgers. But when Rodgers went down and then Zach Wilson played for about 4 or 5 weeks and he struggled, and then they benched him for like Mike White, whoever it was.
Right.
Then you said, and the Jets were trying to be politically correct, but it feels like that for me. Like they're not trying to kill his trade value. But if you're benching him this early, man, for Andy freaking Dalton.
That's what I was going to say. Andy Dalton's not Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, come on, man. Like, no, you don't have much
confidence. It reminded me of when they asked Joe Shane about, are you talking about trading Kadarius Toney? He was like, no, we're not trading Kadarius Toney. And they traded Kadarius Toney. So that when I read that, I'm like, yeah, that's you're not. How can you? Well, we're happy where we're at. We traded away all our draft capital to get Bryce Young. We were the worst team in the league last year. We had the number 1 overall pick, but it went to the Bears. We started out shitty this year. We're going to bench a kid already. We're going to start Andy Dalton. We're very happy where we are in the quarterback room. You're full of shit, bro.
We're so happy.
We're so happy
where we are in the quarterback room. We gave up 9 million draft picks to get a guy that's 5'2", weighs 64 pounds, who can't move the ball down the field, and we're going to bring in a guy that hasn't been a starter in the league for the last 4 years, and Andy Dalton, who's
our age, my age,
retirement home. We're so happy, guys. We're thrilled with where we're at. He's a hell of a politician if he convinced anybody with that.
Wow, he really is struggling. Holy shit. I didn't realize he was this bad this year. Oof. 245 yards passing, no touchdowns, 3 picks, 55% completion percentage. Yeah, that ain't good. That ain't good. 5'10".
He ain't 5'10".
He's probably Kyler Murray, same thing.
Bryce Young is 5'10" with stilts. He's not 5'10". Chaotic says benching him this early lets me know they're done with him and are going to try to get a new guy no matter what they say. I agree with that.
I agree with that too.
You don't pull the plug that early in the season. Now, if there was like a good backup, maybe. But if you're Carolina, you're a lost cause at this point. You're not going to the playoffs. Of course,
Yeah,
you want to leave him in there and develop him. It doesn't add up to me. Doesn't add up to me. Like look at the Giants, bad dog. Eli Manning's rookie year, he was awful. Like he was on par with Bryce Young last year. Probably worse. His rookie year was probably worse than Bryce Young's rookie year.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Giants threw him right back in the
fire. Eli completed 50% of his passes his rookie year.
Yeah. Giants threw him right back in the fire the next year. They never looked back. There was never any talk, we're going to put Jared Lorenzen into the game. It was that didn't exist. So the fact that it doesn't spell good news for Bryce Young. And if you're a fan from another team or a GM from another team, you have to question, how bad is this guy? If they invested that much into this kid and they're willing to move off of him that quickly, like, I don't know, but maybe.
How isn't that GM fired immediately? Or did they fire their guy last year?
Well, they fired. Rule, of course, got fired.
He was a coach, though.
Yeah. I don't even know. I should have been if he wasn't. Yeah. But let's see. Is Bryce Young not picking up the playbook? Gavin, I don't know. I don't watch Carolina games. Obviously, we all know he's struggling. And Jarrett's Bryce Young.
No, he did. Dan Morgan is their new GM. Well, he's the president of football operations.
Okay.
General manager. And that was the beginning of this. It was January of this year. So after last year, they did fire their guy. So Bryce Young isn't this GM's quarterback. It shows you even more of a reason to trade him. Dan Morgan didn't draft the guy.
It would be interesting. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be interesting if they actually open up the doors. Let's see.
I wonder why Bryce Young. Like, I remember him in Alabama.
I don't know. Riggs, what are you talking about? Well, why do you really care how he acts with the media? Who are you talking about? With Bryce Young? I don't know who you're asking about.
Brian Daboll. Why do I care about how he acts in the media? Because you're supposed to be professional with him. You're not supposed to be snippy when they ask you a question. You don't want to argue with the media. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. It's a bad look of I'm not taking accountability. I'm never wrong. I'm always right. That's what Joe Judge did. The same crap. I would say it all year. You can keep throwing bodies under the bus, Joe, but that bus is going to get you eventually.
I'm going to be honest with you, Bad Dog, and I know fans hate it because I hate it too. If I was Daboll, I would do what he's always done in the past. I wouldn't show any aggression towards the media. I would just be boring after every – because when you do that, we saw what happened to Joe Judge. When you open up and you get destroyed – like the media is almost like trolls on Twitter. Like they want you to have that explosion.
No, I don't even think that he was trolling. I think it was a legitimate question.
No, I do too.
I think what happened was Daboll knew he messed up.
Yeah.
And it aggravated him that he messed up. I'm sure Daboll's hard on himself. I'm hard on myself when I make a mistake too. It just is what it is. And then when you keep getting needled about it, you're going to snap. But again, you just answer one. You don't come out with, I'm not a doctor. Just say, hey, we thought Graham Gano was good to go. Obviously, we should have taken, all you got to do is say, we thought Graham Gano was good to go. We should have taken a deeper look at it. We probably should have made more of a consideration. We didn't. He ended up getting hurt, and we're going to have to move on from here. You can't go, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor either. But I do know that if you're favoring something, if you have a bad hamstring or you're in the gym and you have a bad shoulder, you're going to favor it with you. You probably end up hurting your other shoulder. So,
yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Decided to jump out on me there.
But yeah, Riggs, I think it's important the way that you handle the media, especially if you're a coach in New York, man. I think that's one of the more important things that can't be overlooked. That's important when you're hiring a head coach, when you're hiring a general manager, when you're drafting a quarterback. I think that's important, the way that you handle the media, man, because it's the toughest media in the country. It truly is. So
I don't really care. Like if somebody asks him a dumb question and he gets mad at it, I'm cool with that. Yeah. Shred the guy, shred the woman. Whoever asks you a dumb question, shred them. I'm cool with that. But when it's a legitimate question and it legitimately could have cost us the game because they did not do their due diligence and did not consider the alternative, or what if this guy does get hurt in warmups? Even a groin is pretty substantial for a kicker. It's not like he had a bad shoulder. I mean, his legs are a big part of what he does. They're the whole thing of what he does. It's like a quarterback, with a bad throwing shoulder, or a bad elbow. I don't know, man. He was a little snippy. He seems like he's getting frustrated, and obviously he's frustrated. He broke
I think Daboll, when it comes to the media, has to get back to the way that he is. I know that we hate it, but just I gotta go look at
they ask him a dumb question.
That's fine. But I gotta look at the tape. Don't get emotional. Just be reserved and be Belichick. I think that's the best approach when it comes to
on to Cleveland.
Be boring as hell. Like that's how I would handle the media. And Vince says most questions are dumb from the media. I agree.
Yeah. But that one wasn't. That was legit. And I don't like. I'm not a big fan of Jordan Renan, but that's a legitimate question.
That's the first question they should have asked.
Legit. Chris and I talked about it all game. Like that, he's going to get asked about that after the game.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the first question they should have asked. But yeah, I agree though, Vince. Unfortunately, a lot of the media, especially in today's day and age, not just with sports, just in everything in general, everything. Look at the social media age. Everything's short clips. Everybody wants everything quick, condensed. TikTok. Now they have shorts on YouTube, which I've never used, but obviously that's very popular. Everything is Twitter, quick 30-second clips. Everyone wants that clickbait highlight answer. And a lot of the media members go for that. They ask a question to try to deliver a rapid response from Brian Daboll that they know could generate a lot of attention, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be in the newspaper, in their article, so they could write the headline. That's just the way that it is, man. That's the truth. There are definitely certain members of the media that I think do a really good job. Patty being one of them. We love Patty. I think she always, for the most part, asks well thought out questions. She seems like she's prepared when she asks it, but there's a lot of members of the media that you could tell go in there just to get a headline grabbing quick clip. It's just a fact of reality.
The other thing Patty does is when she's there, she doesn't always ask a question. If somebody asks a question she was going to ask, or she just doesn't feel like he's going to answer the question, she doesn't just ask it to ask it. She asks it because, like Chris said, she's well prepared. She thinks them out. She doesn't just throw one out. Well, I'm here. I haven't asked a question. I was going to ask him something really stupid. Because what happens is the coaches or the players are going to lose respect for you. They're not going to call on you for your answer. But like I said, I've never been a huge fan of Jordan. But
that was a good question.
But that was a legitimate question, and his follow-up was very legitimate because as a guy that works out a lot, I understand this guy that played many sports when he was young. When you have an injury and you are favoring one side of your body, you are most likely going to injure another part of your body. It's just how it goes because you're overtaxing another part of your body. So if he's favoring his groin running down the field, that's not the way he normally runs. Yeah. Well, your hamstring grabs.
Yeah, it's just common sense. Like, and I'm not
to be a doctor to know that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that was definitely the reason. It could have been just completely unrelated, a complete fluke. It's possible. I'm not a doctor. But to completely write it off as if it is not a possibility is right. It's silly. Of course, it's a possibility that the injury that he had, even though it wasn't the same body part, could have contributed to that injury.
The other thing he did, he said, "Players get hurt, Jordan."
Yeah,
players get hurt.
Yeah, but
he was already injured.
Yeah. It was a bad answer. You live and learn. Hopefully, he gets better from it.
That was just that was Joe Judge-esque that I'm not taking accountability for it. I'm going to make an excuse as to why I didn't consider him,
Yeah. Angelo says, I'm sick and tired of going through another losing season. The next 7 weeks is going to be rough. The only game we might win is week 10 versus the Panthers. I get why you feel that way. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, Angelo, there's times throughout the week that I feel that way. I may feel that way on Friday for all that I know, but, and you look at the schedule and it certainly looks challenging. I'm not going to downplay that, right? We said that going into the year, this was going to be the gauntlet, the next 6 games. But hey, there are certain teams that are not quite as good as you think and certain teams that are better than you think going into the year. I think we're not nearly as high in Minnesota as they look right now. Minnesota just beat the
right.
So we'll see. I mean, they got to play the games. I don't think we're going to be that bad in terms of the win-loss department, but it wouldn't stun me because it is on paper. It does look like a challenging schedule. I think we'll find a way to win a couple of these games that a lot of people don't think we're going to. And hopefully it starts this week, but we'll see. By no means do I think we're going to be competing for the playoffs. I'm trying to be realistic, but I don't think we're going to start 0-8.
No. Yeah.
Joseph says, Joseph says, get rid of Locke, get Bryce, even if he's 5'10", 204 pounds. Kyler's 5'8", 207. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody.
Kyler's better, though. I mean, that.
Oh, he's definitely better.
Better.
But I don't. I mean, who would want Locke? I mean, I guess you would include him in the trade, but yeah, Locke's garbage. Locke's not good. We know that, but maybe they will. Crazier things have happened, right? It worked out with Kerry Collins. A little bit different of a scenario because Kerry Collins was actually pretty effective with the Carolina Panthers. He brought him to the NFC title game his second year of the team's existence, his second year in the league. He was, I think he was their first draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, Kerry Collins. He was 5th overall out of Penn State, if I recall. But they didn't get rid of him because of his poor play. They got rid of him because of his stuff off the field. But it worked out, right? He came to the Giants and he was really successful with us for about 3 or 4 years. I don't know, maybe something like that happens. JWN says, what's good, guys? How was the workout today, Baddog? Mine was good.
On Wednesday's my day off. I worked from 7 to 7 today, so I'm a little worn out. But yep, tomorrow we'll be at it. We'll be doing the old pipes. We'll be getting those up today or tomorrow. The old guns. It's one of my favorite workouts. I don't know what the hell my favorite workout is. Arm day's long. That's the only day I do more than one muscle group because I do biceps and triceps in that day. But probably chest. Chest is short. It's a short workout. It's a fun workout. But the arm pump is the best. Without question. Arnold wasn't lying. It's up there. It's a good feeling.
Have you seen
that? You know what I'm talking about. Just Google it.
Have you seen the Netflix documentary on Arnold?
I haven't because when that came out,
yeah,
I shared Netflix with my in-laws.
Uh-huh.
Can't do that anymore. So I couldn't watch it. I own Peacock. I own Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, Paramount Plus, Amazon. I don't need another one. I have cable TV and I have and I buy NBA League Pass. I'm like, I can't put any more on the plate. I have so much. But luckily for me, I mean, I need them. Peacock streams football games now. Prime does all the Yankee, or not all the Yankee games, but they do Yankee games. So
Apple does the Yankees too.
That pissed me off because I don't have Apple TV. I can't watch those. And I'm not buying Apple TV just for the Yankees. Like, it's not happening.
Yeah.
So, but that's why the best $20 I spend all year, MLB.com, $20 a year gets you any radio broadcast anywhere. And you can listen to home or away.
Yeah.
You can listen in Spanish if you know Spanish. I don't, but it's the best $20 I spend. I can listen to any game I want to, including the playoffs. It's fantastic.
That's pretty good for $20.
It is.
But yeah, the Arnold documentary was actually really good. Such an interesting life, man. Like, to go from his upbringing to America to become the biggest movie star on the planet. Well, first become the biggest bodybuilder on the planet,
right.
Then become the biggest movie star on the planet, then become one of the biggest politicians on the planet. Such an insane life, man, for him to accomplish what he did from where he came from. It's insane. Angel says, we played so much better in week 2. Browns O-line injured. I'm calling upset. Closer than fans think. I haven't given up like most fans. I think it's going to be a close game. I do. I think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to win. I hope we do, and I think we could win. But I think it will be a competitive game. I'll say that. Aaron says, hey, look, we're like you guys without A.J. Brown. Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, your offense didn't look good. I'll be honest with you, Aaron. Would you be worried even a little bit right now, Bad Dog? And I know Aaron may not want to hear this. Would you be a little bit worried right now if you were an Eagles fan with the way that Jalen Hurts has looked? Not just the last 2 games, but the last half of last year, coupled with the first 2 games of this year. And I understand A.J. Brown didn't play last week. You still have Saquon Barkley. You still have Devontae Smith. You still have a good offensive line.
You still have Dallas Goedert.
Are you a bit concerned, especially if you shelled out the money that you did for this guy? You got to be a little concerned if you're an Eagles fan.
Well, if I'm an Eagle fan, I have the IQ of a potato, so I still think he's the best quarterback in the league, right? I love Eagle fans. I do, and they love me. It's such a great relationship. I really do. I have a soft spot for Eagles fans. I really do. I just love to troll them, and the back and forth is so much fun. Because the fan bases are very similar. If I'm being honest with myself, yes. I mean, he has played like shit. He led the league in turnovers last year. I'm pretty sure he did, or he was right at the top in turnovers. He has not looked good at all this year. He has had big drives and they needed to have him. I'll say that. Against the Packers, he had a good drive. They needed a drive to go down and win. He did it. It was not his fault. If Barkley does his job, Hurts isn't throwing that interception at the end of the game's over. That was on Barkley. Hurts put that right there. Still don't know why Sirianni called a pass and didn't just run the football. I thought he did a shitty job too. I thought it was a bad play call. I know it was wide open. And I remember when I was watching it, because I saw this happen, I'm like, how does it land on before he dropped it? I'm sitting there going, how does it land on a judge for it? That's the same pass I said he caught for a touchdown, but he didn't. He ended up short. But it was the same pass. I'm like, how does the running back just leak out of the backfield wide open? It was the same play, and he was wide open. It's just he fell down. Chris, how many times did Barkley catch a pass and fall on the ground immediately? He did that, cost him a touchdown in that game as well. So, but still, Hurts has not played well. Yeah. And listen, you know me, as an Eagle fan, I'd be worried. As a Giants fan, and most fans that are not Eagle fans think he's overrated. I've always thought he's overrated. He's in one of the best situations you can be in. And yes, you take A.J. Brown away from him. You saw what he did against Tampa Bay last year without A.J. Brown. He was terrible. You saw what he did have A.J. Brown against us last year. He was a little beat up. He was terrible. He was not good in the second half. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. I think he can run. I think that's part of his game. I think he's average at best, and he has great receivers. And I have said this for years. Put him on our team, and let's see what the hell he does. He ain't put up the numbers here that he did in Philly. There was no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just gave him a massive contract, and, you know, the window's closing, man. It is. They lose Kelsey. They lose Fletcher. You're going to start losing other guys. And I know Howie's really good with a cap. He's a cap wizard. I give him that. He's a great GM. But it's going to catch up to them eventually, where they're not going to be able to shell out the money that they're doing, because that cap's going to get them. And you can't just keep restructuring contracts.
Well, the thing with the Hurts contract, and I'd have to look at it again. Obviously, the way that Howie structured it, though, if I remember correctly, was there's almost like no hit. And it's an absorbent amount of money per year. I think it's like, what, $55-60 million a year on average. But the way that he structured it was he gave like a crap ton of money in void years, which is great when you're trying to compete in the here and now, because it gives you a lot more flexibility for the next 2 or 3 years to try to win a Super Bowl. So I agreed with the strategy by Howie Roseman. I think it was the proper approach given the state of that franchise at the time. They are in a Super Bowl window, so that's what you're supposed to do. But if Jalen Hurts does, you know, and I'm not saying he's going to, maybe he will turn around. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league and he'll warrant that contract. But if he tails off, it's not like the DJ contract with the Giants where you could rip it up after 2 years. You're committed to that guy throughout the course. You're committed to that guy. So, you know, I'm just saying, I like to throw a little doubt in the world for Eagles fans. He hasn't looked good. That's all. I'm not saying he's better than Daniel Jones better. He's not. He hasn't looked good. Gershon says, Tana, I know Baddog is saying more Daboll has been Joe Judge-esque. Where do you stand on Daboll other than the playoff year? How do you feel? I mean, I'm not giving up on the guy. I'm not ready to say let's fire the guy. I'm not even close to that. When Daboll and Shane got the jobs, I said from the start, I meant more so with Shane, because I realized a lot of times a GM might have to fire a coach to save his job. But I said I want to give these guys 4 years, and I still stand by that. That's still what I want. But I'd be lying to you if I said that I thought Brian Daboll so far this year has done a good job. I thought the play calling week 1 was really bad. A lot of people will chalk that up to the fact that he didn't have confidence in Daniel Jones. And I suppose there's some legitimacy to that, but it was very bad nevertheless. There were a lot of questionable calls within that game. And then this past week, I mean, to not have a contingency plan with your kicker, who last year got hurt, and it was hurt, and he showed that he wasn't able to make it through that game and then had to miss the remainder of the season, for you not to have a contingency plan going into the game when you knew that he was hurt before the game started, it's questionable for me. And in my opinion, was outside of the defense being all-time bad in terms of stopping the run, it was as big of a factor as any of why we are now 0-2. We should be 1-1, and I think that has a lot to do with it. So, yeah, I mean, not calling reviews thus far for Daboll, but by no means am I calling for a new head coach at this point in time. I can't predict how I'm going to feel in 15 weeks. Yeah, the season could change. Like if I would have 2 weeks into Joe Judge's second year, I would have been, no way, we're not firing this guy. But by the time I saw the end of the season with the QB sneaks and the meltdown with the media, I changed. I said, they have to fire this guy, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to bring in any respectable GM. So I was
ready to fire him after week 1 that second year.
Yeah. Well,
but I remember I just completely did a 180 on him. Him throwing that challenge flag against the Broncos. I'll never at that point. And then he started blaming the same thing. He's blaming the headsets for these timeout issues when we're not getting the headsets. I can't hear anything. And that's why they kept getting delay of games. And he was blaming everything but himself. Daboll deflecting that question. Can players get hurt? I mean, come on, man. Yeah. Like I said, you don't even need to be truthful. You just know how to. You need to know how to work the media. And just like I said, when you got cut off, just tell them, listen, we thought Graham was good to go. Okay, obviously we probably should have taken a better look at this. Maybe we should have looked at it a little bit more. But we thought he was ready to play. He looked good in warmups. We thought he could get through the game with no problems. And unfortunately, he ended up pulling a hamstring chasing down a guy, and we didn't have a kicker. That's the way you answer that question. So, we didn't think he was as injured as whatever. And then they're going to say, well, it makes it look like they weren't prepared. But it doesn't matter. The results show you weren't prepared. It doesn't matter what you say. But to snap at the media when they ask you about it, knowing you messed up, you know you messed up, they know you messed up, the fans know you messed up, it doesn't make it any better. So you have to take accountability. We should have did it. We should have looked at it a little bit closer and maybe consider adding a kicker. We didn't.
Or you go with the cliche answer, what you always do. Let me look at the tape and I'll analyze it and I'll give you guys a better answer. But the way he responded to it was poor. I agree with that.
That's what I mean. Like, because
hopefully he learns from that. And
because that's what happened to Joe Judge. It built.
Yeah.
And then he snapped. Not that I cared. I actually enjoyed that when he said, "We're no clown show organization." I go, I knew you watched Joe. Yeah. I know Joe Judge is still watching me. Yeah. Joe Judge loves me.
Aaron Jones says, Hurts is who he is. I would say just barely a top 10. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Maybe 10 to 15. Howie has done more than enough. Our defense is top tier ass. Your defense has not looked great so far this year, and your defensive line, which has been that's been the calling card for the Eagles for years. I think that is probably much like the Giants. That's a big concern of ours right now. We can't stop the run. But that's always been like the biggest. You guys have always, going back to Fletcher Cox like 15 years ago when he was.
No Fletcher Cox, no Hassan Reddick. I mean, that hurt.
Yeah, that's always been their calling card.
No Jason Kelsey, like things. Two new coordinators, and Fangio is not a good defensive coordinator. Yeah. And your secondary is very young. Your secondary is weird. It's very young and it's very old at the same time. There's like nothing in between.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
JT says, I hope we experiment with Bryce Young. Give me something to watch on Sunday. I think that's why a lot of Giants fans want him. They just want somebody different. And they know like Drew Lock is awful. At least with Bryce Young, you're like, maybe. Maybe. It's
the whole thing. It's a maybe.
Yeah. I still don't think they're going to trade him. Not, at least not for the price that Shane would be willing to give. I don't think they're going to trade him for that. Maybe they'd be willing to trade him for a second round pick, but I don't think the Giants would do that. Young and Promise says, How you guys doing tonight? As of right now, what are we thinking of Daboll's future with the Giants? I mean, as of today, I think he's going to be the coach in 2025. Ask me that question in 10 weeks. I may give you a different answer. But as of today, and I have the same exact mindset with Daboll that I had coming into the year. A lot of people would say, on whether it be on Twitter or whether it be on here, when we were doing our live shows before the year started, that Daboll's almost as if he is guaranteed a fourth year. I said, no, he's not guaranteed a fourth year. I've seen so many crazy things happen in the NFL where going into a year you expect, like Shermer's a perfect example. You draft a quarterback 6th overall. You're like, okay, he's going to get another year. He's a quarterback guy. You draft the guy. The quarterback actually looked pretty good in his rookie year. He's going to get another year. He got fired. Ben McAdoo, they go 11-5. They go to the playoffs. He got fired the next year. Obviously, his handling of Eli had a lot to do with it. Same thing with Joe Judge. Going into the second year, there's no way I would have thought he would have been fired. So I did not go into the year thinking he's guaranteed a fourth year. But if you ask me if I'm a betting man right now, yeah, I think he's going to get a fourth year. He's Shane's guy. They came here together. He still hasn't had a chance to get his quarterback. So in the end, unless this team is a complete embarrassment, like if they win 2 games, at that point, you might be forced to do that because the fan base is going to need some pound of flesh. And we've seen in the past that Mara will give it to them. So if something like that were to happen, yeah, I think there's a good chance he'll be fired. But if this team is respectable and they win 5 or 6 games and they're able to, skate by and fight down the stretch like last year, I think you're able to convince Mara, give me another year. Let us now get our quarterback and then judge me on this football team. So I'm still leaning he'll be back. I don't think he'll be fired at year's end.
Yeah. Listen, I'm giving Daboll a hard time. I think he's done a bad job so far this year, but I still believe, like you said, I still believe that he and Joe Shane need to get their quarterback. And people say, well, they gave Daniel Jones a contract, and I'm sick and tired of arguing about that and why they did it. I mean, if you just look at it logically, you can understand why they had to do what they had to do. That's all you have to do at it. You can hate the contract. You can hate Daniel Jones. You can hate the fact that he's still a Giant. You can hate the fact that we're freaking losing football game. You can hate all of it. But if you take a step back and look at the situation, when they signed him, how they signed him, and why they signed him, and take a look at the way the contract is constructed, you'll understand they really were put in a bad spot there. They have not had an opportunity to get away from him. If the quarterback class of 2022 was what it was last year, the Giants would have their quarterback. Okay, especially if those 3 teams were drafting the quarterback at the top of the board. Even last year, they could have had it. But if there was 5 good quarterbacks, or if the Giants had 5 and 7 this year, they might have went JJ McCarthy. They might have went Michael Penix with one of those picks because they could have got somebody else.
They might have.
So there was nobody there for them to take. Will Levis sucks. Kenny Pickett's the only guy that was drafted in the first round. He's a backup, and he's terrible. They couldn't do it. Yeah. Daboll needs his own quarterback. Yeah, I know Daboll had a bad year, and I don't like the way he's handling the media. And I don't like those short, snippy answers that like not taking accountability. To me, that's just, I understand he's frustrated, but I felt like that was a bad look. Regardless, you can't keep changing coaches and coordinators and making these guys learn it all over again. And now we got to figure this out. Now we're going to bring in more guys because this guy wants this guy and I want that guy. And
now what I'll say is this is my mindset on this, and I want him back right now.
I want him back too, but I'm going to give him shit if he sucks because that's what I do.
If he is back, I want him to get 2 more years because I don't want this bullshit that we went through with Daniel Jones
quarterback
when we first drafted him. If you're going to draft a rookie quarterback and you're going to spend a top 5 pick, if that's what we end up doing on a quarterback, and you're going to make the decision, I'm sticking with Daboll. I support that. I'm for that. I want stability. But if you're going to do that, you better not fire Daboll after the quarterback's first year and get him off on a rocky start where he's got to bring in a brand new play caller, learn a whole new offense.
Right,
I don't want any of that. If you're sticking with Daboll another year, he's getting 2 more years if you're drafting a quarterback in the first 5 picks. I don't care. I don't care if we win 5 games. I don't want that quarterback having to learn a brand new offense in the second year. The way that they handled the Daniel Jones thing was a disgrace. So if you're going to stick with Daboll after this year, he gets 2 more years. That's my outlook on the situation.
Agreed. I think they should have a shot at their own quarterback. This guy was forced on them. It's obvious from day one they were not sold. They did not pick up his 5th-year option. They could not. And I'm telling you, they didn't pick. Even though if they went into that year, they would have had another quarterback. Yeah. Now Daniel Jones still may have started in 2022. Maybe he wouldn't. I don't know what they would have done with Daniel Jones, but they would have had a quarterback in 2022 if there was one there to be had. If Daniel Jones was bad in 2022, they get another quarterback. But he wasn't. And if Barkley signs a contract, they tag Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones ain't here this year. Barkley still is here this year. And they probably get a quarterback. So let them get their guy, whoever the hell that may be. Obviously, they were not high on McCarthy. I think that was smoke. I think they want somebody to jump up and take McCarthy so they could get somebody else. They obviously were never high on Penix. They didn't even bring him in for a visit. I love Penix. But it was obvious they wanted Drake May or Jaden Daniels. I think that was pretty obvious. They couldn't get him.
Yeah.
Let them have their guy. And if they suck, then they go down with a ship. But I don't think it's fair to give him Daniel Jones, who really was never great, dealt with a lot of injuries, and we know that the game moves too fast for him, and you can't coach that. That's instinct. You can't coach a guy's instinct. You can tell him to the ball.
And I agree. That is what I prefer. But for me, it's either you fire Daboll at this year or he gets 2 more years. There's no 1 year and we'll see, and then we're going to fire you next year.
I agree.
If you're going to commit to him and you're going to make that investment on that position, he's getting 2 more years. So I'm okay if you fire him. If the team completely bombs this year and you say, we want to rip it up, we want to start from scratch, we're drafting a quarterback, let's bring in a coach we believe in, this guy's going to get 3 or 4 more years. I'm okay with that. It's not what I prefer, but I'm okay with that. But if you make the determination Daboll's getting another year, he's getting 2 more years. You're giving that quarterback as fair of an opportunity as you can to start him off.
The other thing is the quarterback that comes in now is going to go into a much better situation than Jones went into.
Much better.
Make no mistake about it. Jones is, like I said, the game's too fast for Jones, but make no mistake about it. He never had a chance here. He never had a chance. With Gettleman here, he never had a chance. He didn't. He never had a chance. So that's just, like I said, that's a bad marriage. This has been a bad marriage for years. And now it's time for a divorce. And you each go your separate ways and you wish each other well. And, nothing but the best, but just ain't working together. No.
And Jakey Mygo says, what's up, guys? I know it's early, but do you think the Chiefs three-peat? Personally, I think the Bills win the Super Bowl this year. Jakey, what I've learned is, I'm not going to guarantee any three-peats, and obviously the Chiefs look a little shaky, but they looked a little shaky last year. Then they put it together. What I've learned over my years of watching the NFL, I'm gonna put my money on the best quarterback. For years, I tried to dispute Tom Brady. Tom Brady always found a way to either win the Super Bowl or be right in the thick of it every year.
Yep.
I'm not betting against Pat Mahomes.
I never bet against Belichick and Brady.
I'm not betting against Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes either. So until I see Josh Allen beat him, I mean, last year, Bad Dog, let's be real. Josh Allen, and I love Josh Allen. I'm a huge fan of Josh Allen. Loved him before he took off. I think he's got an incredible talent. Okay? Until I see Josh Allen beat Pat Mahomes. Last year, Josh Allen had everything in his favor. Everything. You're home. You had bad weather conditions. Pat Mahomes had his worst offensive arsenal around him throughout his entire career, and you still couldn't beat him. So until
he was throwing to Kadarius Toney.
Big spot, I'm not picking him.
He was doing a Kadarius Toney. That tells you.
So,
tells you how bad it was. And the other, I don't know if it was the year before, one of the years where Buffalo had it won, and they gave up a field goal with 20 seconds to go. They had them beaten. They totally gave it up, which was insane.
Yeah, so I like Buffalo. They look good coming out of the gate. They definitely are Super Bowl contenders, but I can't pick them over the Chiefs until I see it, man. Can't do it. And I'm gonna tell you what, man. My guy, I've always been a big Jim Harbaugh fan, and they've beat up on some bad teams thus far. The Chargers are just going to be good, man. Everybody's like panicking before the year starts. Oh, you got rid of Keenan Allen. Oh, you got rid of who was the other receiver they got rid? They got rid of Mike Williams, who went to the Jets. You lost Austin Eckler. You lost all your weapons. This team's going to be a disgrace. They're 2-0. And I remember when the Giants were looking for a head coach, because he's always been my favorite coach in the league. I was pounding the table for the Giants to try to get Harbaugh. I wanted him bad. A lot of fans hated that idea. They said, oh, he's struggling at Michigan. He hasn't lived up to the hype. Jim Harbaugh is a phenomenal head coach. And Chargers are going to be Super Bowl contenders in a year or two. I have no doubt in my mind.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Michigan took a step back already this year.
Yeah. It's facts. And Huh? Bad Dog, who would you take number 1 overall for quarterback? I don't know if you mean at next year's draft, I'm assuming. But go ahead, Bad Dog.
Yeah, everybody knows what I like. I'm a Cameron Ward guy. I like Cameron Ward.
Yeah, you've been pounding the table for him.
That's my first choice. But as I've said, Quinn Ewers, I'm always worried about Quinn Ewers' injury history. Carson Beck, there is a few guys out there. I prefer Cameron Ward, but if they went Quinn Ewers, if they went Carson Beck, I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want Milroe number 1 overall. I don't think he's. I'm not sold on him. I haven't watched enough of Drew Aller, so I don't know.
That's a guy I want to see more of. I can't answer this question right now. I know like all the mocks say.
Yeah, I just like Cameron Ward.
Ward.
I want to see more. I don't know what year Dylan Riola's in for Nebraska.
I think he's a freshman.
Maybe he was. I thought he was there last year.
Yeah.
I like him. I like him a lot too, but I don't think he can come out this year. I think is he a sophomore? I'm gonna look.
Yeah, but I and again I haven't seen a whole lot of him. Drew Aller, or however it's pronounced with Penn State.
Oh, he's only 19. He's just a kid.
Yeah, he's a baby. But when I saw him last year, and he struggled, I think Aller was a freshman last year. At least it was his first year thrown into action. He didn't play great in the game that I saw, but I saw tools. I'm like, oh wow, he's actually has a big arm and he's pretty mobile. So that's a guy I'm interested in seeing this year. I have seen some Cam Ward. Yeah, he's talented, but it's hard for me to answer that question until I get an opportunity to watch these guys when they actually play real competition. It's only 2 or 3 weeks in. I can tell you right now, I love Archie Manning. He's not draft eligible this year. And obviously, naturally, I'm biased as a Giants fan. That guy's special, man. There's certain quarterbacks when you watch him. It was the same thing when I saw what's his name? Caleb Williams for the first time. He's special.
Yeah,
and it's the same thing with Manning. You watch that guy, he's special. He's gonna be the first pick. We won't get him probably, but he's special. But I have to watch more of these quarterbacks before I could be like, this would be.
I see someone else mention the chat, Jackson Dart. I know a lot of people like Ole Miss, and maybe that's because Eli went there. But he's another one that.
I actually watched him 2 years ago. I didn't watch him so much last year. I watched a few Ole Miss games 2 years ago, and maybe I will change my opinion. I haven't watched a whole lot of him. I wasn't super impressed with him. For me, when I watched him, he kind of came across like a slightly more mobile Bo Nix with maybe a little bit bigger of an arm.
Funny you mention that because that's kind of where I am. Same thing. And I was never a fan of Bo Nix. Never. Yeah. I was never a fan of Bo Nix. I just didn't. And I know he went to Oregon and I know he played a lot better, but he was terrible with Auburn. And he was in college for 5 or 6 years. He was there forever. And I just was never sold. And I kind of feel the same way about Jackson Dart. Now, people saying Shedeur Sanders really doesn't play well against better collegiate teams, which always worries me. And more so than anything, I just worry about him in New York City, young kid. And I don't know, man. I just, and more than that, Dion. Like, I don't want Dion to come along with, and he's going to. You know, Dion's always going to be saying, like, Dion will be criticizing the Giants. I got to already see that. Oh, if Shedeur Sanders, they got to protect him, or the line's no good, or his receivers got to do. But I can already see Dion doing that.
Yeah,
I don't want the outside stuff that will come with Shedeur Sanders. Like I just feel like that would be a mess in New York because of the stage it's on. Like I could see. Well, he's not going to be a Cowboy now, but that's perfect. The Raiders are a good place for him.
Flashy, yeah.
Raiders like those type of guys, right? They like those high flying, exciting. You know, they're gambles. You know what I mean? And it's perfect because he's going to Vegas. But Vegas need a quarterback. So
Carolina apparently needs a quarterback.
He might do really well in Carolina. What is there to do there?
Yeah. Gershon says, what if the Giants drafted Josh Allen? Which Josh Allen are you talking about?
Should have had them both.
Are you talking about the Josh Allen that Baddog and me nearly had a heart attack about? Or are you talking about I'm assuming you're talking about the quarterback.
Should have had them both Josh Allens.
Yeah. If you're talking about the quarterback, more than likely we would be thinking much differently about the team. But part of me, Baddog, is like, I'm not 100% sold on that because does Josh Allen turn out to be as good as he did with the Bills, with the Giants? And the talent was unmistakably there. But he was clearly a big project coming out, and the tutelage, and that's a big reason why Brian Daboll got this job. He was able to get Josh Allen to hit his ceiling, and he was credited with a lot of that. In the situation the Giants were in, does he morph into the quarterback? We'll never know. Clearly a lot more talented than Daniel Jones, and he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, and more than likely would have, because I think his talent is just so good. But there's no guarantees there. But of course, there's a much higher probability the Giants would be in a much different situation right now if they drafted Josh Allen.
It's interesting because Shermer was the head coach, and Daniel Jones might have had his best year under Pat Shermer. Because Shermer may have been able to turn Josh Allen into a really good quarterback, and then maybe Shermer keeps his job. It's weird how that one pick could change things.
Yeah.
Around. So it's interesting. Yeah, they probably would have been they might have been in a position to pick the other Josh Allen, but it wouldn't have been Daniel Jones.
No, of course.
But also, they probably wouldn't have traded Odell Beckham at that point either. So you imagine Josh Allen coming in with Odell Beckham?
Yeah.
Because Beckham was still here in 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point you keep him. Yeah, because you got Barkley.
You probably don't end up with Dexter Lawrence unless you end up with Dexter Lawrence just drafting him. I don't know.
Yeah, you probably. Well, the next year, yeah, you might still have drafted Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But you wouldn't have. Obviously, Daniel Jones wouldn't be here.
Right. Oh, because you wouldn't have the extra pick for Dexter Lawrence with
Correct.
the trade for Beckham. Okay. Yeah.
And God forbid we didn't get O'Shane Ximines in that pick.
Oh God. My God, what is with the Giants, man? They can't draft edge rushers anymore. Like O'Shane Ximines, Lorenzo Carter, Azeez Ojulari, although I like him, obviously hasn't panned out. Like, they can't hit on edge rusher. When's the last time they hit on an edge rusher where you were like, that's a great draft pick? It's been a long time. Yeah, JPP. That's the last time.
Yeah.
They don't hit on him. And that's our calling. Well, Kayvon still obviously may be a hit, but we've struggled at that position for a long time.
Yes, we have. We've struggled at every position for a long time, which is why we've struggled as a team for such a long time.
Yeah. Let's see. DJ Believers should be. Kane's like, lock him up, man. Put him in jail.
I can see. I think KN's got the Daboll thumbnail there. Daboll's probably thinking the same thing.
Oh God, you guys make me laugh. Let's see. Poor scouting and poor coaching. What Ron? You talking about the Giants in general? Yeah, obviously. Poor GM, poor scouting, poor coaching.
Yeah, poor development too.
A lot of reasons why we are, where we are.
It's bad.
Talent evaluation with the Giants has been abysmal for years. It's that, and it's the development of said talent, right? Because you look at Will Hernandez, for example. He's turned into a pretty good player since leaving the Giants. You look at Eric Flowers. He became a respectable guard after he left the Giants.
You look at Darius Toney. Oh, never mind. He sucks.
Yeah, he sucks. He did help us keep the Eagles away from another Super Bowl.
Never good for the Giants.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's both. It's been both player development and evaluation. Let's see.
A lot of them fail. I mean, just like a McKeithen, right? Gone. Azudu benched. Neal benched. Like, that's another thing we can't draft. Remember, Andrew Thomas was good. Remember Matt Parrott? Remember Shane Lemieux?
Do you remember there were people that were
Why are they trying to do this, Chris? They don't draft any linemen. Gettleman don't draft any linemen ever. He did draft for Hernandez, but they don't draft any linemen, right? And then the 1 year they draft 3 in the first, the third, the fifth round. And that's exactly what Shane did.
Yeah.
In his first year. When he didn't draft another one.
That's right. He took McKeithen in the 5th. Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, I mean, he did sign a bunch. And, he drafted JMS the following year.
That's right. He did. So that's kind of like his Will Hernandez.
Yeah.
So that's weird.
And I'm actually encouraged by JMS.
I am too.
I remember one of our first podcasts of the year, we talked about the player that I don't remember you said. I said JMS. I thought he was going to break out this year. And so far, so good. He's definitely looking like he's trending towards growing as a player this year, which is
I think I was a Wandale guy. I think that was the guy.
I still like Wandale. And I'm going to tell you what, I think Wandale and Slayton, I think those guys are going to start to put up a lot better numbers these next coming weeks, because after last week,
Neighbors is going to draw some attention.
How do you not double Malik Neighbors? And
Can
if you
start Jalen Hyde in the game, please,
it'd be nice.
Can we get Jalen Hyde in the game, please?
What is with that? What is going on with that? And I'm not. I remember going into the year, they had Jalen Hyatt listed as the starter above Darius Slayton going into those preseason games on the early season depth chart. And I was surprised because I still think Slayton's a good player, and I expected Slayton to start the year as the starter. But the fact that he went from that, when we went into the year at that point, we're like, oh, wow, so Slayton's actually going to get a lot more reps this year. Maybe Slayton will be relegated to a backup role, or maybe it'll be like an even split. Haven't seen him. Jalen Hyatt's been invisible so far.
Yep. Can we get him off the milk carton, as you said last time?
Yeah, so that's interesting. And he, we still got 15 more games to go, but Jalen Hyatt was a project coming in. That the book on him was obviously great speed, limited route tree. So I thought it would take some time for him to develop, but I thought we'd see a bit more of him in his second year.
Paul Dottino really likes him a lot and said he worked really hard and thought he was going to have a really big year. I don't know why he's not getting the snaps. I don't understand it. Maybe the next time we do a show with Patty, we'll have more insight as to why.
If I'm being honest, I think Slayton's a better receiver at this point. But I would like to see Hyatt get more of an opportunity to grow.
Right.
Yeah. Gershon says, would you guys rather GM or head coach be let go first?
The head coach, if you fire the GM, you're getting rid of everybody because GM's going to want his own coaching staff.
Yeah. I think it's for the reason that Baddog said it. It's not necessarily because I think Joe Shane's doing a better job than Brian Daboll. I think you could question Joe Shane just as easily as you could question Brian Daboll. Like his draft picks right now, at best, look mediocre. Although I will say this draft so far looks very encouraging, and JMS looks like he's getting better. So that may, trend towards being a good pick. So it's still way too early to evaluate him. But I think you could make just as many negative points about Joe Shane as you can Brian Daboll. But it's for what Baddog said. If you fire the GM, like you're just knocking the whole thing down. You're starting from scratch. I would prefer, if I had to pick one, I'd rather the GM keep the job and maybe a coach comes in here and he's able to continue to build, because I don't want to go through another GM, because you get another GM. We've seen what happened. We've been through this. They're going to get rid of everybody on the roster, and then they're going to bring in there. So you're talking about a 2-year turnover at that point. Like that, to me, it's a disaster. It's not what I want. I want Joe Shane to continue to build, and hopefully this team gets down the right path. So, I would much rather prefer to keep the GM if I had to keep one of them.
Agreed.
Let's see. Maybe he's fast, but easily passed or something. Maybe Hard Knocks will enlighten us about Hyatt. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the book of him coming in. It's why he was a 3rd round pick. He had a limited route tree. He needed to develop more, but you'd like to see him be a little bit more involved in the game, and hopefully we get to see that over the course of the year. Because he had a number of pretty big plays last year. 3, 4, 5 plays where he caught the ball for over 30, 40 yards. So we know the big play ability is there. Just his speed alone, the threat of him on the outside, opposite a guy like a Malik Neighbors. I mean, my God, that could open up the middle of the field for guys like Wandell and Theo Johnson, who hasn't been much involved yet either. I still think they're working out the kinks with this offense, because what we're seeing now is I don't think we're going to see this throughout the entirety of the year. You're seeing a lot of 2 wide sets. You're seeing a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. Daniel Jones under center. I think as the year progresses, you're going to see them open up this offense more. And maybe that's when you start to see Hyatt more implemented in the offense. But I think that has as much to do with it as anything, Baddog. They're running a ton of sets where they only got 2 wide receivers on the field.
Right.
You know? So I feel like as they expand this offense, you'll see Hyatt be more involved in it.
Yeah, I'm reading this right now. It's just came out a few hours ago, and that's pretty much what it says. They're just using 2 wide receivers, and he pretty much just has more faith in Slayton. That's really what it says. They sprinkle in Hyatt in particular plays, making use of Hyatt's deep speed makes sense, but Daboll is blunt. He said the 3rd round pick is the 3rd guy in our 2 receiver sets. And he's the 4th guy, and he's the 4th guy in when we go 3 wide receiver sets. So that's why.
Yeah, so
basic. I still would like to see him more.
I think we will. I think as the year progresses, I think we will. Key says Joe is smug. We can't mess up 5 and 7. Neil's a bust, and Tibbs is a miss. I think right now it's fair to say Neil's a bust, and maybe we will get something out of him. Maybe he will move to the guard and he'll be a good guard. I'm not ruling that out. But even if he becomes a good guard, unless he becomes a great guard, that's a clear miss. If you're taking a guard at 5th overall, he better be one of the best guards in the NFL. So that's going to end up being a miss. That's just the way it appears right now. I'm not willing to say yet that Kayvon's a miss. I'm willing to say that I'm a little bit underwhelmed. I was hoping he'd be a little bit further along at this point, but I'm not willing to say that Kayvon's a miss yet. But
Neil, hit or miss is really what he is.
Yeah. Neil, I completely agree with.
Yeah, Neil was. But again, when we picked those guys, I don't remember any Giants fan going, "Oh, that was terrible. Like we should have never taken Evan Neal." I don't remember anybody saying that.
Yeah.
So
let's see. The Giants almost have 0 swag. How can they start to get it back? Obviously, win, but what's a small step? Yeah, I mean, like you just hit on the head. Winning. That's it, man. That's going to bring confidence. That's going to bring swag. But yeah, I getting home at the quarterback. That's supposed to be the strength of this football team. Yes, we had 5 sacks last Sunday, but we generated sacks with the blitz against the rookie quarterback. I want to see them be able to generate consistent pressure, sending 3, 4 guys. We haven't seen that yet. You start to do that, And and I think you'll see progression with that if we could get better against the run. If teams are going to run over us like they have the first 2 weeks, last week especially, we're not going to get after the quarterback because they're going to be in second and shorts and third and shorts all game long. So, you got to put them in situations where you can get home at the quarterback. But yeah, I think you start to see them get pressure on the quarterback like we were hoping and thinking they could with this dynamic of a Brian Burns, a Kayvon Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence.
Right.
That'll get you some swag. That'll get you some confidence. You'll start to see some turnovers created. Yeah, I think that, man. I think that's the bread and butter of this team. We have to be able to generate a pass rush.
Without question. I mean, that's because Bone don't like to bring extra guys. So we have to, these edge rushers have got to make bigger plays. There's no doubt about it. They're going to win football games. Defense has to, carry their own. I mean, and listen, let's be honest. In that Washington game, the offense is better than the defense was. No doubt about it. And I would have never thought I'd say that in any game this year.
Yeah.
But that's the case. If the defense just gets – Washington did not punt one time. The defense just gets one stop. We win the freaking game. One stop.
Yeah.
They stop them all day.
Yeah. And some of that was self-inflicted. The first drive, we had a 3-and-out, and then you had that stupid penalty.
Yep.
So, you're right, man. We beat ourselves.
And then, of course, the terrible call when Zach Ertz just pretty much ran over Drew Phillips, and they called a holding call on Drew Phillips. And that gave him a first down.
Right.
Singletary's fumble, we were driving again.
Yeah.
And he fumbled, the Washington got the ball, and we couldn't stop him again.
Yeah. So, I guess from a glass half full standpoint, we should have won last week, but we didn't. So it's
right.
How happy could you be?
Bad team too, right? We find ways to lose. But yes, I felt like we should have won that game. Even when we were losing, I felt like we were winning. I just felt like we were the better team. Just that's not saying much.
Yeah, Washington's not a very good team. They got a rookie
quarterback. It's not saying much, but we didn't end up winning, and that's all that matters in the end is winning.
Yeah. And Crisco says it's so easy in hindsight to critique picks. I think that's fair. I bring that up often. A lot of people like to judge in hindsight. They don't often a lot of times they won't put themselves in the position at the time, not having the power of hindsight, and it's easy to criticize. So I think that's a fair point. Let me continue. But at the time, were they really bad picks? There's an element to gambling here. No. Yes, Crisco, I get what you're saying. On draft night, it wasn't like the Daniel Jones pick where 90% of the fan base was, probably even more than that, was like 90. Screaming at the top of the lungs, ourselves included. No, those were well-received picks. Those were picks that fans wanted. Those were picks that experts thought were really good picks on the night of. Kayvon Thibodeau was thought to be one of the top 3-4 players in that class. Evan Neal was thought to be the best tackle in that class by many people. Some people argued, what was it? Cross was the other tackle. Yeah. A lot of people felt like he may fit our scheme better, but for the most part, those were very well-received picks. We thought that we hit on those. But, Crisco, what I'll say is at the end of the day, you're a GM, regardless of how the picks were viewed on draft night, you're going to be ridiculed, especially with picks that high if they don't work out. And it's the other side of the token as well. You look at the Andrew Phillips pick. Last year on draft night, pretty much the majority of the draft picks Joe Schoen made, at least from what I saw on social media, were pretty well received. Whether it be Tyler Newbin in the second round, of course, our first round pick. Andrew Phillips was widely ridiculed. People hated that pick. People said that was a really bad pick by Joe Schoen, obviously before getting to see him play. Right now, we love it. So it works both ways. On draft day, we, as a fan base, a wide majority of people did not like that pick. Now it looks like it might be his best pick in terms of value in that draft, at least early on with the early reviews. You could say the same thing about the Wan'Dale pick. A lot of people hated that pick on draft night. What are you doing? Slot receiver. We got Tony. Well, Wan'Dale, when he's on the field, now has turned into a good player. So it works both ways. But at the end of the day, it's about results. It's a results-driven business. And if you have 2 picks inside the top 7 and those guys don't produce, regardless of how it was viewed and received at the time. Same thing with Nate Solder, Baddog. We could go back in time to Dave Gettleman and we could say, well, I can make sense of that. That makes sense.
Yeah, he's the best left tackle available.
Best left tackle available. You have an older quarterback. You're trying to win. Now you got to go through with the plan. You drafted Saquon Barkley. You got to get Eli Manning some help on the left side. You can make sense of it, but just because you can make sense of it doesn't mean it was a good move. And it's the same thing with the Kenny Golladay. You can make sense of it. Daniel Jones is coming up on the end of his rookie deal. You need to get him as much help as you possibly can before you make that critical decision of whether or not to extend your quarterback. get him as much help as you can. It didn't work. So just because in live time, fans a lot of times will agree with these moves, it doesn't mean that they end up being good moves 2-3 years down the line.
Right. You can say that for any GM. You can say that for any fan base.
Yeah.
Eagle fans hated that Jalen Hurts pick on draft night.
Yeah.
Hated it. We just gave Carson Wentz all this money. What the hell are we taking him for? They hated that pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works both ways.
And Joe's the man, dude. Thank you so much for being here. He says, hey, guys, can you please send a very special shout out to my 96-year-old? That's awesome. Giant fan Louis Rizzo has amazing stories of the 1940 Giants playing at the Polo Grounds. Happy, I don't know if it's his birthday, but if it is, happy 96th birthday. If it's not, well, congratulations on reaching 96.
God bless. 96. God bless.
Louis, Rizzo, thank you for tuning in, man. And hopefully you get to see another Giants Super Bowl in the not too distant future.
Damn right.
But thank you for tuning in. He's basically he's watched the Giants almost through their entirety. 1925. He's been around since 1940. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Desmond says, I will be in LA for the next couple of days to see the Dodgers. Hope we kick the Browns' asses Sunday. We need to, man. I don't even know who the Dodgers playing. Dodgers didn't help me enough. I think the Braves took 2 against them. I know maybe the Dodgers took 2. I don't remember. But who the Dodgers playing, Desmond? Thank you for tuning in the stream, man. Let's see. Key says, true. Picks is a gamble, but Joe's arrogance is getting me. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room.
I think all GMs have to have that type of mentality, though.
I don't think the Hard Knocks did Joe Shane any favors, and that's why I don't want my team on Hard Knocks more often than not.
Dodgers play the Rockies this weekend.
Oh, they play. So he'll probably get to experience a win. The Rockies aren't very good.
No, they're pretty.
This is such a weird year in baseball, man. Like when I look around the standings, there are so many teams. Like the Mets, for example. The Mets are right now the second wild card, almost the third wild card in the National League. They're only like 4 or 5 games behind the Yankees, who have the best record in the American League. Like it's so condensed at the top. Like nobody has like a runaway record. And then there's like 4 or 5 teams that have like awful records. Like the Chicago White Sox have one of the worst records in the history of baseball right now, right? You got the Rockies. They've got like 50 wins. So there's not much in the middle this year. It's either you're kind of like a 90-win-plus team or you're like all-time bad. There's not a lot of in-the-middle teams this year, I've noticed. It's a weird year for baseball.
It is a weird year.
But guys, it's 11:04. We've been going for a bit. We'll talk to you guys for a few more minutes, and then we're going to close it out. Of course, should have shouted out Baddog during the stream. You guys know by now, but we will be over there Saturday, the night before, and then of course back here for the game against the Browns. So looking forward to calling that with you guys.
Another early game.
Yeah. And Rocky says Hard Knocks was a horrible idea. Rocky, the way that I look at the Hard Knocks is it's kind of like if you like eating hot dogs, but you don't want to know how the hot dogs are made. You don't want to see the behind the curtain.
Right.
It's the same with the Giants. Like, you know, that's why as a fan, and listen, as a fan, I enjoy it. It's more content. I get more of an in-depth look at my team. But at the same time, it's kind of unnecessary. Like, I don't need to see how the hot dog's made. I don't need that much of an in-depth look because it's going to bring a lot of negativity and a lot of scrutiny. So, if I was Joe Shane, I probably wouldn't want to do that again. Or if I was John Mara, I probably wouldn't want to do that again.
I don't know, man. I mean, I liked Hard Knocks. I didn't think Joe Shane came off as arrogant or cocky. Maybe I just didn't want to see it. I don't know. I like Joe Shane. I do. I'm a fan of Joe Shane. I understand the criticism because, you know, draft picks didn't pan out, and now Brian Burns is off to a slow start, and he cost a lot of money. And I think fans are more upset with just the way the Saquon Daniel Jones thing worked out. I have a feeling even if we had the same record as we do now, and Jones wasn't our quarterback and Barkley was still here, I feel like the heat would be a little bit easier on him. But you get rid of your best player, an absolute fan favorite, no question about it, for a guy that a lot of people don't believe in. I understand that, the division there as far as that goes, but I still like Joe Shane. I think that was the right move. I do. I hate that he went to Philadelphia, but I don't think you could pay Saquon Barkley with the way the team is. And so far, he took the money he was going to give Saquon and put it in the line, and the line looks good. And again, Devin Singletary had the same amount of rushing yards as Barkley did and 4 less carries this past week. So you take that for what it's worth. But
I'm with you.
Saquon Barkley was not making us win 11 games. Like,
I'm. By the way, I'm definitely with you. I am definitely much more in the Joe Shane camp still than not in the Joe Shane camp.
Right.
I'm trying to be as fair as I can because a lot of times people are critical of me and you when it comes to talking about. Like, I'm trying to be somewhat objective, and I definitely recognize where fans are being critical right now of Joe Shane because there are definitely things to worry about, specifically his drafts. But overall, I still see a vision with Joe Shane. I still think he has a plan, and personally for me, and everybody's allowed to fan the way they want. I at least want to get the opportunity to see him carry his plan out. I think he has finally established a support system for the quarterback position that is acceptable. And when he came in here, it was beyond unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I want to see him get the opportunity to get his quarterback and to see if this team could develop. I think he's built in certain areas. There's more building that needs to be done. And we got to see, and I think we need to see these draft picks have another year or two to continue to grow. JMS, for example, really encouraging these first 2 games. So I'm still with you. I'm definitely still much more pro Shane.
Yeah.
And Joe, man, he says, you guys are the best, man. I appreciate it, man. You're the best, man. Thank you for being here.
How can we be the best and you the best? That's the question.
And Gershon says, got to put score predictions here before you go. I am going to go. I really want to pick the Giants to win. I just have a weird feeling that that this game is going to be a lot closer than a lot of Giants fans think. But I can't find myself to pick them. I definitely think they can win this game. I really do. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be an ugly football game. A lot of field goals. We all know that the Browns struggle on offense. We all know that the Giants' strength on defense, if they have one right now, is in the red zone. You saw it this past week, 6 trips, 6 field goals when they got inside the red zone. I think 1 came from outside the red zone. So, and I think they will hold strong there. I expect a lot of field goals in this game because the Browns have a great defense. And I think the Giants will struggle to put the ball in the end zone. I'm looking at 19-16 Browns. But I do think it's close. I do think the Giants cover, and I do think they have an opportunity to win this game going into the fourth quarter.
Not as confident as you.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's low scoring. We saw the over-under was 38.5. I think it's an under. But I think Cleveland wins this pretty handedly. I don't see our offense moving the ball at all against them. And I can see their defense actually getting a touchdown in this game. And I think the Giants lose something like 23-10. I can just see it. We're going to Cleveland. I can just see the Giants just getting off to that offense really struggling. And, Cleveland, even though their offense has struggled, I can definitely see them getting the ball in plus territory because of their defense. I can see a lot of 3-and-outs for the Giants. And I think Cleveland wins 23-10.
I could see that. I mean, nothing would surprise me with the Giants. If they lose by 30 points, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, nothing would surprise me either.
Yeah, but I do. I think they're going to be competitive in this game, but we'll see. But I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to take Cleveland, but I think it'll be close.
Yeah.
But Gershon, man, I really appreciate it. And Juan, thank you for being a member. He says, thank you. Appreciate all you do. Thank you, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. He said he could see Cleveland with a pick 6. I mean, how could you not? I mean,
right.
Daniel Jones had 3 pick 6s, 3 games in a row. So he's not. It's definitely not. It's not an off the wall prediction. It's 75% chance if you look at the last 4 games.
Right.
So, but I think it'll be close. I do. I think the Giants will keep it competitive, and I think we will have a chance to win. If Jones could minimize the mistakes, I think the defense keeps us in this game. I don't think the Browns have a great offense. I think the defense could keep us in this game. Okay. But Baddog, do what you got to do, my man, and we will see you guys in 3 days, Saturday. But
appreciate you guys and girls tuning in as always. We're over the hump, so weekend's right around the corner. Be Giants football before you know it. We'll tune in. We'll watch the hell show that is the New York Giants, but we'll keep you entertained as we can. And I'm sure like I said, you never know what you're going to see in a live stream between us. So you guys have a good night. We appreciate the hell out of you. We wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for you. 7 years strong, baby. Season 7. The entertaining, the bad diggy diz. Enjoy the rest of your hump day, everybody. We gone. Peace.
Have a good rest of your night, guys.